Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from loose_alternative_91. AITA for telling my friend that I get hotter men than her. I and my friend R, both 18F, have been friends since high school in sophomore year. She always was quite rude and had a reputation for people not liking her, but I befriended her because I didn't care and thought she might be cool. Throughout our whole friendship, we have been in a trio with our friend S, 19F. I always noticed that she always had side comments that hurt my feelings and never treated S that way. Throughout our friendship, I have constantly brought this up to her and tried make her understand or create some type of compromise because she can hurt my feelings. But she has always dismissed how I felt. She would say that it's how she is. Generally, I was always apologetic, even if I was not in the wrong, while she would never apologize or apologize briefly, such as, "I'm kind of busy right now, I'm sorry," and move on with our conversations. There were other issues also, but in general it seemed that she always had an issue with me, and not with my friend S. For context, on a trip we went to Puerto Rico. We were very new to drinking, and I broke a promise one night. I was a designated sober person, and I broke the rule by drinking, but in my defense, we all ended up not following the rule anyways for the last 2 nights of the trip. Since then, R has repeatedly told me that she does not trust me, which I understand and have worked on. Now, for what happened in the last 3 days, me and S took a 7-hour drive to go visit R in college, and to go out with her to the bars and stuff. Now for context, I am a very messy drunk, and R put down rules that were targeted towards me. The rules were to not leave with any guys and not drink too much. Now I will admit I really f***ed up here. I not only disobeyed the rules, I went to the pizza place next door with a guy. And I also lost her friend's fake ID. I played her back and apologized profusely. And R also has lost one of her fakes at one point. Also her friend had 2 extras on her anyways. R was enraged with me that night, but we went to sleep fine. The next day, we all woke up and talked about what happened. I told R that I'm very sorry, and she said that she doesn't trust me. I initially said I would not go out that night because I felt bad, but ended up changing my mind and explaining to them that although they want to keep me safe, I believed I could take care of myself. I told R that I also wanted to prove to her that she can trust me again by stating that I would not drink that night. She agreed with me, and so we got ready and left to a different dorm building. The second we got there and saw her friends, it seemed to be a tense atmosphere, but I thought nothing of it. Around 30 minutes later, after R left to do an errand, she pulls me out of the room and then started telling me I can't go anymore. Her reasons being that she didn't trust me and thought that her friends were uncomfortable around me. This made me very upset, but we walked down to the exit. Because I've already had issues with her, I asked if I could take the key or card to enter the dorm because I wanted to go by myself and cool off. She then started telling me no because she didn't trust me. This honestly offended me because it was just opening the door with a key. We then proceeded to argue, and she got mad and left to go back to her friend's room. I got very mad and walked outside while thinking about what I was going to now for the rest of the night. I then decided to go to the frats by myself because I was already dressed and didn't want to spend the rest of my night crying in a random dorm lobby. I got to the frats and got really drunk and eventually was allowed to crash at a friend of a friend's place, which I'm really thankful for. My friends only started to contact me at 2 a.m. when their night had ended to see if I was okay. That morning when I woke up the next day still very drunk, I was feeling retrospective about my relationship with R, and I ended up feeling very upset and sent her a message saying terrible things because I had finally snapped, and her telling me she didn't trust me with a key was my final straw. I'll admit the message went too far. I went for her looks and for the fact that she has a harder time picking up guys than I do, and telling her she is an and has been to me the whole friendship. I knew I wanted to end the friendship, and I felt that our whole friendship she got away with treating me terribly and me allowing it, and this message was a final you because I've had enough. And also the fact that she didn't bother to check up on me throughout that whole night, even when she invited me, and also said she cared about my safety speaks volumes. I think something that shows how she is as a person is her making arbitrary rules about my safety, while also not checking up on me the entire night I was gone, and also aggressively shoving me to the right bathroom out of anger to the point of my finger getting swollen while I was drunk. It hurt S when R read her the message I had sent, because R has always treated S nicer than she has treated me. On the drive back, I explained to S why I will not be friends with R anymore, and S told me that she didn't believe me in what I said about my experience with R the whole friendship. S had made up her mind and took R's side, saying that she wasn't sure if we should stay friends. After arguing for a minute, S started crying and called R, where she then proceeded to tell S to kick me out of the hotel room, and stayed on call with her while she relayed this message to me. After calling our parents, we decided to just stick with the original plan. I really think R is good at manipulation and trying to turn S against me. I understand I made mistakes, but so has she. I am not an evil or malicious person. I think I just hit a breaking point. And I don't think it is okay that R can manipulate S into saying that I'm in the wrong when she has looked down on me and has tried to put me down our entire friendship. S is a really nice person that I still want to be friends with. Am I the OP is not an AH for ending the friendship. Her toxic friend's controlling behavior and continuous criticism cannot be justified. And for the same behavior, I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. And OP gets nothing. Let's now move on the next story from Laugh Boring 8002. AITA. If I go low contact with my sister because she thinks badly of me. Some background. My 19F half-sister, 32F, moved to another country for study, as her father lived there when I was around 3-yo. She used to come live with us for some time during the summer at the beginning. Now she comes visit for a few weeks, but doesn't stay with us. I grew up in our hometown with my mother and study medicine here for now. Recently, my sister sent me angry texts, which, to me, came out of nowhere, and we had a 3-hour-long online fight. It started by her saying she hopes I fail my exam and called me evil. She called me a bad daughter, sister, and granddaughter, that I do not care about anybody but myself, said I never had empathy, and that she was always fearing I would grow up like this. Her reference is that I would throw tantrums and go scream alone in a room when I was 5. That she's heartbroken and failed as a sister. Told me she has been trying to convince mom to kick me out and cut me off financially. Lots of other painful, unprompted things were said from her, especially concerning subjects which are sensitive topics to me. Now, I never did anything which I would deem deserving of such an outburst. Her main reasoning behind all of it is that I am messy and dirty, and I am not helping around the house enough. It's true that I am messy and can be lazy, but I do not think I am an outlier, as in, much more messy or lazy than an average teenager, or that it deserves this sort of reaction. I am not dirty. There will never be dirty dishes or food found in my room. She has high expectations of what I should do, as in, that I am not going to my grandmother's place to clean, even though she lives with other people fully capable of doing it. And me not aligning with such expectations automatically means I am abnormal and lack empathy. Keep in mind, I am a medical student. I barely have time to sleep. I also do not want to live at home and am planning to move to another city next year. Anyways, it's not like I want to leech off of my mother forever. A lot of her complaints were not actual problems I had with other family members, but random things which bothered her, which I was completely blindsided by. For example, she told me that I do not cook for mom because I don't have empathy. The thing is, I love cooking and offered it multiple times, but mom said no, as she has a different schedule, which suits her more. When I told my sister that, she said people are going to say no, and that I should do it without asking, and it's crazy that I even ask. Again, I already did those multiple times in the past, and the food wasn't touched. I know for a fact mom has no problem with our current setting. All of the examples were like this, and when I tried to explain, she would get angry and say that I am making excuses, and that this also shows my lack of empathy. Basically, whatever I said was used against me and seen in a negative light. She told me that it wasn't a discussion, and that she won't change her opinion of me no matter what I say, that she just wanted for me to realize how I am and fix myself. The conversation ended somewhat amicably as I continued explaining my side, and the conclusion was, guess we just have different ideals and perspectives on life and empathy. Later, she sent me memes and such, and I sent some back. But honestly, I lost my will to interact with her. It hurt me a lot to think that somebody I value and thought I was close to thinks so badly of me and sees me almost monster, and that all of my behaviors are seen negatively and attributed to my personality and never to external factors. I do not see a point of hanging out with someone that sees me so negatively, and I do not think I could even have any fun around them. especially because she said, no matter what, her opinion of me won't change. She's still family. I love her and wish her the best, and will always help her if need be, but I do not want to visit or spend time with her, at least for now. But frankly, I do not see how this could change. However, I am second-guessing my feelings and wondering if they are justified and understandable. I am thinking that maybe I am childish, but no matter how I look at it, I want to be in the company of people who like me and appreciate me and look at me positively. OP is not an AH for going no contact with her sister. It is her sister who is an AH for always criticizing OP, despite knowing OP's struggle with her studies. So, I would rate OP's sister 2 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets 0. Let's now move on to the next story from Prestigious Car 1368. AITA for kicking my roommate's emotional support skunk. I, 21F, live with 2 other girls, Madison, 19F, and Emma, 19F. Madison and Emma were already living together before I was added to their apartment. Our apartment is a 3-bed, 3-bath nearby a university which we all attended. I was told by apartment staff that Madison has an emotional support animal, which was fine by me since I had a cat myself. However, I was shocked to find when I moved in that it wasn't a cat or dog, but a skunk. Apparently, in my state, skunks can legally be registered as emotional support animals. I was completely floored by this and wanted to switch apartments, but my complex said all other open units had tenants with cat allergies, so I moved into that apartment. For this Reddit story, let's just call the ESA Skunk J. Before you ask, yes, its scent gland has been removed so it's no longer able to spray. When I first moved in, Madison reassured me that she never lets it outside without supervision and that it was calm and friendly. At first, things were fine. I got along with the girls well, and I rarely saw Jay. Madison said it was because it was intimated by me and my cat's presence, so it didn't want to come out. I felt some guilt about that, but decided to just carry on. Over the next month or so, Jay got more confident and started to venture outside more. One day, I came home to find food littered all over the kitchen floor. I was shocked to find Jay digging through my cabinet and destroying all my food. I found Madison sitting in her room completely unaware that this was happening. Madison stepped in and grabbed Jay. Apparently, Jay will eat anything she'll find, so I shouldn't put food in the lower cabinets or leave anything out where she could reach it. I was shocked because Madison never told me about this, and now all of my food was destroyed. Madison cleaned up the mess and apologized, but she never offered to repay me for the groceries. I didn't want to push on it though, so I just moved all my food from the lower cabinets from that point on. Things only got worse from there as Jay got more and more comfortable. I couldn't leave my door open even for a second because if I did, Jay would run in there and dig through my things or eat my cat's food. Then, Jay developed a new habit of following me anytime I entered our kitchen and crawling over my feet, I guess to see if she could get food from me. One day, when this happened, she bit down hard on my foot, to the point that it drew some blood. I was so scared and Madison apologized profusely. After that, I bought new sturdy slippers hoping to combat this, but Jay would just go for my ankles. And Jay was not just biting me, but Madison and Emma too. I was becoming worried that she would try to fight my cat, so I started to keep my cat exclusively in my room. I could tell this change really affected my cat's mood, and it made me feel horrible. I was starting to become overwhelmed with anxiety over this skunk. I would rarely leave my room, and when I did, I would be filled with dread. I asked my apartment if there were any other open units at this time. They told me no. I asked if anything could be done about the skunk, and they told me since Jay was a registered ESA, they couldn't do much. And so, the complex put me on the wait list for any available apartments. I started to beg Madison to take care of Jay, train it, supervisor it better, just do something. But Madison didn't seem to care. In fact, I don't think she even had a clue on how to really take care of a skunk. Jay had what seemed to me like a mediocre diet, no outdoor time, and little to no training. Madison didn't seem to understand why Jay was misbehaving like this. Apparently when Jay was a baby, it was very sweet and calm. But now Jay regularly would misbehave and was outright aggressive. I also wanted to say that Madison often abused Jay. When Jay would try to bite her, she would slam her foot down atop of Jay. When taking Jay back to her room from the common space, she would grab Jay by the tail and drag it inside. I even saw Madison slamming Jay against a wall at one point. I hated watching that, but I truly didn't know how I could fix this. I wanted to report all this to wildlife services, but I was scared. Would the skunk have to be put down? Would Madison try to get revenge for me speaking out? Yesterday, I was walking into the kitchen when out of nowhere Jay lunged at me. It caught me off guard. I didn't even see that she was in the kitchen. My fight or flight instinct must have set in because I kicked Jay off of me hard. She slammed into the side of the refrigerator and went limp. I panicked and found Madison right away, who took Jay to the veterinary hospital. I felt horrible for what happened and was scared that I might have just killed a skunk. Later that night, Madison came home with Jay. Madison didn't tell me much about what happened medically, besides that Jay was going to be okay. That's when both Madison and Emma set into me. They called me an animal abuser and a callous bitch. They said I kicked Jay on purpose because I didn't like her. Madison threatened to post online about how I abused her emotional support animal. Things got more and more aggressive, and I felt so scared, so I decided to leave. Now I'm sitting in a friend's apartment with my cat writing this post. So, am I the for kicking my roommate's emotional support skunk? OP is not an AH. Rather, her roommate is an AH for bringing her pet along with her. Although legally she was allowed to bring it, she should have considered the other people sharing the room. OP's reaction is 100% justified. She did nothing wrong. So, I would rate OP's roommate 2 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump onto the next story from Slow-Shake 8142. AITA for being mad over a football game? Redo. I, female 46, dating for the last 4 years, male 48, have always been very straightforward with my feelings. He struggles a lot in that area, but I was willing to wait for him to grow in it with me because I have my weaknesses too. Over the years, there have been several incidents where I felt very low priority. I'm not needy by any means, and have accepted that we may only have every other weekend to spend with each other because our lives are very busy. We both have kids, and we both have our kids the same weeks. We have tried to just take it slow introducing them to one another and figuring out how to spend more time together regardless of when we have our kids. We've had our issues. We've even spent some time apart as we worked through them. I have expressed that his lack of planning and lack of communication in certain areas makes me feel. A few times he's gotten invited to football games. I'm never invited along, and he doesn't think I should be upset about it because he doesn't get a say in who's invited if there are limited tickets. I usually get over it once I've thought about it and just recognize there's nothing to be done. He chooses that, and he should be able to without me making him feel bad. But I told him if there was a compromise, and he got invited to it again, that he could ask if I could be the +1 and not his son at least one time. He agreed to this. Today we were hanging out. I made breakfast for him and his son. I even helped with a radiator fixing and really value time spent with him regardless of what we are doing because I love him. And our time is limited, and I prioritize time with him over everything when I have the time to spend it. I went inside as I was finished helping and sat to wait for him to come in to watch the game. After a while, he didn't come in, and I went back outside to see how things were going, and he announced that they just got invited to the game, which meant they'd be leaving fairly quickly because it was a last-minute invite. My heart dropped as his son was very excited, and I really wanted to be happy for him, but it meant that I'd have to figure out the rest of my evening. We still had a good 3 hours left of hang time before I was supposed to go work by 4:30 nearby. I had planned to watch the game and eat with him as I live about half an hour away, so it wasn't convenient for me to just go home. Plus, I was sad that once again, I was getting ditched for football. We did get some time together, and I feel bad being hurt, however. After he said he was going, I just grabbed my purse and headed out. He always opens my car door, but I was annoyed and just said, "Have fun." I got it and closed the door myself. As I was driving home, tears started to flow as I was again left behind. Not chosen to go to the game and left to fend for myself. I'm a big girl, but it still hurt. I texted very quickly, "I'm really trying to be okay with this." He said, "Don't feel bad, we're not trying to hurt your feelings." I knew there was limited time to discuss how I was feeling, and that I would be dismissed in how I felt or told I was wrong to feel that way. I'm 46. I know how to manage my emotions, but this time I just couldn't take another "don't feel bad, this is just the way it is," without any regard to my plans or my feelings. I have to just accept that I'm low on the totem pole when it comes to things like this. Don't get me wrong, I would never make him miss time with his 19-year-old son. He's missed a lot of time after the divorce when he didn't get 50/50 custody. He deserved more time with them because he's a great father. But his son, as soon as he turned 18, moved in with him, full time. And I've just tried to navigate when I get alone time with my boyfriend, and when I'm asking for too much. I don't know, I broke up with him today because after all this time, I feel so unloved and underappreciated. I spent a lifetime feeling that with my ex, and even worse. Am I the for feeling bad enough to break up with him and totally blocking him on every avenue? After I expressed how it felt to be left out again, he said, "Well, I guess I messed up again," and hung up on me. He's normally very patient, but I don't think he wanted to feel bad for going to the game. Should I have just let it go and gotten over it? I don't know. OP is not an AH for ending her relationship. Her boyfriend is an AH for always neglecting and hurting her. OP's reaction is valid and completely justified. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 3.5 out of 5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Karma. It's a cat. 13. AITA for leaving my BF, the cats, the apartment, and the country, plus never contacting him again. I, 19F at the time, and my BF, 24M, started dating. I was only 16Y and still on high school. Meanwhile, he was living with his friend on a house and was on a medical leave cause of a work incident on his finger. At the time, he was the oldest guy that I've ever been with. We liked same things at first view. First one with a car. Honestly, whole new world. Life went on. He went back to his parents' house, got a new job. I graduated and then got a job at a restaurant. So as our shifts were really different, we decided to move together. The real problem, I think, is I was a teenager that had a complicated relationship with family. Me and my mom didn't know how to appreciate each other and fight often. In the other hand, his family was picture-perfect church people. I even studied with his brother on high school. I got so caught by this so-called perfect family thing. After a while, I noticed some not-so-cool things, like his mom was way too much overprotective, and he always told everything to that woman, even intimate things, and everything she said was the most truth. The big problem was my dream job, flight attendant. She could find a problem on all of that, even the location, Dubai. She said that was no good. Notice that I live in a South American country in a really small town. Anyways, I tried to tolerate that until the time I got sick during COVID. All my tests were coming negative, but I was terrible. Really high fever, infected throat, no voice, super weak. I missed days at work. I couldn't clean the house, though I was never a good housewife to start. I couldn't even get up the bed. When she came to help one day, it was one of that summer days that the houses feel like an oven. In my country, AC are expensive, so you handle it with a fan and open windows. However, my apartment didn't have protection for the cats in the windows. One of the cats had even already broken their paw and ruined our already unstable finances. So I was not taking any risks again, and all the windows stayed closed. OFC. Noticed that I was the one sick. Noticed that even the cats were lazy with the heat, so I opened the window, but kept close to keep an eye. See how she complained to my BF that I didn't care about her cooking in the heat, and only opened the window after she took a medicine for headache? Anyways, he took her home as always, but took way longer to come back. Once he came back, he came directly to shout at me about what I had done to his mama. I pointed how always that he goes, "See, he's mom, we always fight." He didn't get it. I had no voice to defend myself and no man to take care of me. It was enough. When I broke up with him, we stayed living together for more 2 or 3W till I get brave enough to tell it to my mom, who took me back in on a beat of a heart. I only took from the apartment what I brought, all the stuff that I bought or got. As gift I left there, as he would live there with a roommate and stay with the cats. I got a job on cruise ships, and as he totally lost his mind, I blocked him on most things, just not on FB, so he could contact me in case he needs something for the cats. But even when I was still on the same country, I never contacted or saw him again. Also, him never did, just tried to talk over silly things and went crazy mode. He donated the cats and never told me, just to my cousin after already done it, went to live back with his mom. Now everyone hates me because I'm successful in my career, saying that I should have helped him with the cats. He never put 1 cent on them when we were together, except for the time that one broke the paw, or with the apartment, etc. etc. But I don't feel responsible. Actually, what I think that really upsets him, it's that he tried to groom me and it didn't work. That now me and my family really appreciate each other. I'm healing and he's still the same. AITA. OP is not an AH for ending her toxic relationship. OP's boyfriend never showed any support towards her. and she had to face criticism from his mother. OP did nothing wrong. So I would rate OP's boyfriend 2 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets 0. Let's now move on to the next story from elegant_walla by _4024 AITA for calling my coworker lazy. I am 30 years old, female, and I work at a very known hotel in the state town I live in. It is one of the most popular hotels in my town, usually full even during the slow season. I work overnights at the front desk. I have been with this company for about 4 months. When I first started this job, this hotel recently got bought by a new company. With new companies, there are always new changes. I know this due to past experiences. Every day I work, I set up breakfast for the breakfast attendants, due to most of the items needing to be out by 3 a.m. I don't mind setting things out. The issue I have is the weekend breakfast attendants. Every Sunday night that I come to work, I go to set up breakfast and there is a mess left in the kitchen. I am talking dirty dishes that have been sitting out all day, the sink never being washed out. So think of slimy, stinky old hard food and grime sitting at the bottom of a giant sink, covering the whole bottom. Then there is the breakfast area that things get left out all the time. Usually, the signs for the breakfast items, and often the half and half container with the milk still in it, gets left out all day. There are more issues, but these are what I can think of at the moment. I know a lot of this sounds superficial and not a big deal, but when you have to do this so often, you start getting irritated by it. Well, I decided to find out who was causing most of these issues. I found out who it was in 2 weeks because they worked on a weekday, where we don't usually have more than one breakfast attendant, and the exact same issues happened on those days. We will call the person Bob, not real name. I started documenting the messes and issues to show my manager, and when I did, I was told to just don't worry about cleaning up after those messes. Just worry about your work and ignore those messes. They are new JJ, me, not real name. It's going to take them time to get the hang of everything. I reminded my manager that I cannot ignore these issues because I am unable to do my job unless these things are done clean. Also, this person started working here 2 weeks after I did, so no, they are not new. My manager asked me to let her deal with this, so I did. After another month passed of these things happening, I stopped doing the things I needed to that involved cleaning up after this coworker. My manager did not seem to care either way. Thankfully, I rarely ever saw this guy due to the days he worked never matched the nights I worked. He would work Sunday morning, and I would work Sunday night, but he never worked Monday morning and so forth. Unfortunately, our main breakfast attendant just had a baby and was out on paternity leave, so Bob was covering a couple shifts, which meant I had to actually see him. I decided that I was going to be civil and remain calm. That morning was a pretty slow morning for both of us, but I had a guest ask about more cups and coffee from the coffee station, and I let them know that I would find the breakfast attendant. I found Bob in the storage closet trying to close a playpen. Out of curiosity, I asked him what he was doing and if he needs any help. He then goes, "Why are you always asking me questions? It's annoying." Now this confused me because we never work in the mornings together, so I was unsure what he meant by always asking him questions, and I told him that I like to ask questions while keeping my composure. He then tells me that he's trying to get the playpen out of his way. I said, "Isn't that playpen usually there?" Due to the last 4 weeks of it being there. Bob then says, "No, it's not usually here. I work every day." No, he does not work every day. He only works 3 days a week. I completely understand being irritated and cussing, but I am not okay with someone cussing at me. So, I went off in a very creepy, calm way. I told him that if he worked here every day, then I would be more miserable because I would have to clean up even more due to him being too lazy to do his job, and that he should be worrying about getting coffee and cups out there for the guests and not worry about a playpen. Then I walked out. I messaged my manager about everything that happened, but I kind of feel like a big jerk. So, AITA for calling my coworker lazy. OP is not an AH. Rather, her coworker is an AH for messing things up and making OP's job difficult. Not only OP's coworker, but also the manager is an AH for not addressing the dispute. As for scores, I would rate OP's coworker and manager each 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, while OP gets nothing. AITA for exposing my ex-fiancé mistress 12 years later. I, 36F, was engaged 12 years ago and about to get married to Carl. Everything in my life seemed perfect until I found out my fiancé was having an affair with a new hire of his job called Camilla, 20s F. Both of them were in serious relationships. I broke off the engagement with Carl as soon as I found out and told Camilla's boyfriend about the cheating. Well, it was hard for me, but I moved on after months of therapy and the help of my friends and family. Now I am married to Henry, 41M, my amazing husband and father of our 4 children, 9F, 7M, 4M, and 4F. I moved to the other side of the country years ago, and I never thought about my ex-fiancé or the cheating again. My husband works in a law firm. Last year they hired a new lawyer, Daniel, 34M, who moved with his family to live in our area. He and my husband became very good friends, as they have similar interests and personalities. Henry asked me to invite Daniel's family to our house to help with adjust to the new city and job. When Daniel came to my house for a play date for our kids, his kids are 4M and 2F, he introduced us to his wife, Cam, 30s F. Well, Cam was Camilla. I really didn't know how to react when I recognized her. I had the impression that she also recognized me. Our husbands didn't understand why everything seemed so tense, and we pretended to not know each other and made failed attempts of small talk. After an hour, Cam made up an excuse, and her family left. Henry noticed my behavior and asked me what was happening. I told him everything. He already knew about my past with Carl and the affair. Later that day, I received a text from Camilla begging me to not tell Daniel about our past. I read the message and didn't reply, but I decided to not say anything and mind my business. This was not my problem anymore. After a week of silence, Daniel shows up at our doorstep looking very agitated. He talked to my husband alone, and after, Henry asked me to tell Daniel my version of everything. Like my husband, Daniel realized something weird happened on our meeting and spent the week trying to get answers from his wife. She refused to tell him what happened and then tried to say I was her ex-boyfriend's side chick, and that's why we were so tense. Daniel didn't buy her story, and they had a massive fight. After the fight, he realized I was the one that could tell him the truth. And I did tell him everything after he asked. I even showed him the text message Camilla sent me. I didn't feel the need to sugarcoat things, since Camilla was out there telling lies about me. Daniel was in complete shock, because cheating is a trigger for him. His father cheated on his mom for years, and left the family for his mistress, which made him hate cheaters. Camilla knew about this since their first date. Daniel left our house looking defeated, and in the same day, I received a call from Camilla accusing me of being a revengeful bitch. She said I was trying to destroy her life. I don't think I was wrong for telling the truth, but this happened last year, and I received calls and random messages from people close to Camilla saying I am an for exposing Camilla's past to her husband. AITA update. I posted this on the AITA subreddit, since this happened a year ago, and some people wants to know what happened. Since then, I just decided to post this on my page. First, this is not a fake story. The only thing that's fake are the names. I am not AI either. Second, I don't think cheaters must be punished forever. While I would probably never want to be close friends with Camilla, after the initial shock I would have no issues being civil with her. I don't think she deserves to live through hell because she was awful years ago. I also don't think she was the worst person. Carl definitely was. He was the one who's about to marry me. But she was a willing part of the affair, and she knew me from their office. Also, everybody there knew Carl was living with me, and we were engaged. Third, Camilla got my number from Daniel's phone. I have a pretty uncommon last name, and my name is not popular either. Daniel got my number from me. Henry gave me his contact to set up a dinner date to introduce our families. I texted him. We already have met sometimes on the office and at my house when he came by with Henry. Daniel texted me back about setting up our plans for the kids' play date, and that's that. My husband didn't give Camilla my number. At the time this all happened, my husband had seen her just once, while at the office with Daniel. The fact that Camilla had access to her husband's phone is not weird to me. Her actions were. The update: Daniel and Camilla are not divorced. After leaving our house, Daniel stayed at a hotel for a while. Then he got back to his house and they started doing couples therapy. The harassment though, calls and texts, lasted over a month. Henry was about to send a cease and desist when he decided to talk to Daniel about this. Daniel handled it. What I know through Henry is that most of Camilla's flying monkeys didn't know the full story, and when Daniel set things straight, they stopped. Camilla emailed me months after, apologizing. I accepted her apology, but we are not close, and I don't feel like her words were genuine. Most likely she wants to save her marriage. Talking about their marriage, Daniel and I talked some months after this at a party in my house, and I told him that I felt terrible for my part on their marital problems, and he reassured me. Daniel said that they were already having issues before we met, Seems like she wasn't happy about moving here and leaving her family on the other side of the country. Also, they were having money problems because their old state has a higher cost of living. Since Camilla left work after she got pregnant with their second child, they had less money, and cutting costs on their lifestyle was making them fight. The move to our state made sense because it was a better position with a good raise. I don't know much else about it, just that recently Henry told me that Daniel was depressed after a big fight they had about Thanksgiving. Camilla wanted to travel to their old state to stay with her family, and Daniel wanted to visit his mother. That lives closer. Everybody in the office knows about their fight since Daniel asked to stay at a co-worker's place. Daniel told Henry directly that he would start divorce proceedings because on their last fight, Camilla was talking about taking the kids and moving back closer to her parents. He said that she will not have full custody of his kids. That's basically all I know, and I don't really know if Daniel will go through divorce. OP is not an AH for revealing the truth. Her ex-fiance's mistress is blaming OP for telling her boyfriend about her past relationship. OP's actions are 100% justified. She did nothing wrong, so I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's ex-mistress, 3.5 out of 5. Let's now jump onto the next story from Black Girl Knickers. AITA for telling a coworker that I'll go to HR if they keep pushing the Xmas adopt a family on me. My job has adopted a family for Xmas, and there are many options to choose from to get each adult and child. The gift options have started to fly off the board. Cool, but apparently someone has noticed that I haven't been joining in the conversation about what option they chose, or what to buy a teenage boy-girl. I was asked if I chose something off the board, and I simply replied that I don't celebrate Christmas. Said coworker then said that it didn't matter if I celebrated or not, that it was a time for giving, and we should help those who can't do for themselves. Now little background on me. I grew up extremely poor, as in when these holidays came around, it was nothing but misery for my siblings and I. Thanksgiving was just normal dinner for us, unless we were forced to visit family, and we rarely got anything for Christmas. My mom felt that we needed to be around family during the holidays, so we were always forced to go over families' houses for Xmas and watch the kids have everything we never had. Some of my worst childhood memories were waking up on Christmas Day to nothing. We never had a tree or presents to put under it. Always having to hear my younger siblings cry from disappointment, and then being forced to go over a cousin's house and watch them open their gifts. Watching them get the things I always wanted and toss them aside to never look at them again. Being asked what I got for Xmas and trying to decide to lie to not embarrass my mom, or be honest and have them pity us, is not something a child should do. At some point, my mom signed us up for these Adopt a Family fire truck to bring gifts, whatever charity you could think of, just like the one my job is doing. She did for years. I know, as I was usually with her when she signed us up, and no one ever came through for us, ever. So it's safe to say that I feel some kind of way about these so-called charities, and learned a couple of things early in life and vowed to never contribute you these things because no one cared about me and my siblings. So why should I care for anyone else this time or year? Why should I go out of my way to help when we were never helped? People metaphorically said, my mom and her kids, so them and their kids. So back to my coworker. I told her that these people are not my responsibility, and if she felt so strongly about it, then to grab an extra card off the board. I know I shouldn't have said that, but the anger in me just spilled over. Then replied that I didn't have to be a Grinch, to which I said, if you keep harassing me about what I chose to not celebrate, then it will become an HR issue. They dropped it after that. Now I don't feel bad for what I said, and I stand by how I feel. But honestly, it kills me how self-righteous people can be about these things. Most just do it to make themselves feel better, and think they changed a child's life with a $10 Walmart gift card. But I overheard some talking about the incident, and it put me in a bad light. I know I don't owe anyone an explanation, but I didn't like hearing being talked about like that without any context. AITA for how I responded? Edit. I think some people are missing the point here. My job has adopted one family, and the cards are a number of different things they want. So for the people who are saying that I'm ruining some kid's Xmas, you're wrong. They're getting stuff from everyone else, just not me. Also, just because I choose to not donate to random strangers, like most people choose not to do, doesn't mean I don't give back in other ways. My family is my priority, and they will be provided for first and foremost, and that taught me that me and mine will never come before anyone else's own family. They didn't owe us anything, and I'm simply adopting that same mindset. Anyone else who says otherwise is lying. My nieces and nephews will never know the hurt my siblings, and I felt over the holidays. And finally, I work hard for my money, so I'm going to spend it how I like on whom I like. I just find it funny that some of you are so damn sanctimonious and hypocritical. How often do you donate, especially in this economy? Also, how often do you donate to poor children outside of the holiday season? As someone in the comments mentioned, there's more than just the holiday season that poor kids need things. OP is not an AH for setting her boundaries, and her frustration is completely justified. OP has the right to decide what she wants to do and what not. So, she did nothing wrong. OP coworker is an AH for pressuring her to attend the party against her will, so I would rate him 1.5 out of 5, and OP gets a 0. Let's now move on to the next story of this chapter, from Material Exciting 4460. AITA, for making my family feel unwelcomed after the birth of my first child. I, 24F, and my partner, 24M, moved to another state after college, 8 hours away from my family. We are blessed enough to both have great jobs that allowed us to purchase a home and start a family. In February, we found out we were having a baby. His family and my family were both so supportive throughout the pregnancy, throwing us 2 baby showers and spending time helping us get everything ready. We literally didn't have to buy a single item in preparation for our baby's arrival. So we are extremely blessed. Once it was time for her to arrive this month, my family really wanted to be here. My partner only got 2 weeks off of work, so we really wanted to spend the time alone to bond with the baby and figure out how to be parents for the first time. But we didn't want to take away the experience of our families having their first grandchild. Therefore, we agreed to let my mom, his mom, and my aunt stay for a week. My mom and his mom slept at our house while my aunt stayed at my partner's dad's house. My birth was not what I expected. I was in labor from 9 a.m. Tuesday to 10 p.m. Wednesday. My epidural failed, and I felt everything. I pushed for 3 hours and got second-degree tears from my 8 pounds 12 ounces baby. I was absolutely exhausted from screaming in pain for hours on end and being stitched up with no pain meds. I couldn't even do skin-to-skin right away because of how exhausted I was, so my partner did it for me. Once I was more coherent, my partner asked if I wanted visitors. I was not ready, so I asked him to let everyone in the waiting room that the baby was healthy, but I wasn't ready for visitors until the next day. The next day, we had visitors from morning till night. I was in so much pain and exhausted, but still wanted everyone to be able to meet the baby. I was discharged 2 days later and came home to a clean house full of groceries and meals. The next few days, my family stayed with us and helped clean and cook. They held the baby, and I tried to make sure everyone got equal time holding her. Although I was stressed about having people stay with us, I ended up appreciating having them there to help with chores, so we could focus on our baby. My mom asked if she could come back in less than a month, and I told her it would be too much. We were planning on going to visit them in December anyways for a weekend. Fast forward a week, they've traveled back, and I get a call from my mom. She's sobbing, saying I made her feel unwelcomed, and that she feels like I don't want to have a relationship with her. My relationship with my family has been rocky in the past, and we've all been through a lot, so that had some part in why she felt that way. She said my sister and my aunt told her things that made her think that way, and I was a mess. I thought everything went great when they were here. And I'm 1 week postpartum, and I'm feeling extremely guilty for making my mom feel that way. She told me not wanting her to come in November, and only wanting to stay a weekend in December, made her think I didn't want to be around them. I got off the phone and texted my sister and aunt to stop telling my mom negative things that puts me in an uncomfortable situation. This is when I found out that everyone thinks they have to walk on eggshells around me, and that I took away from their experience with our baby. My aunt said that she waited in the hospital for 2 days, and when she found out I didn't want visitors the night I gave birth, she was going to go hang out with my partner's family and drink wine because she wasn't going to waste her PTO. She also said she felt unwelcomed when they were here, and she only stayed to support my mom. I was so confused because I thought the week went great. This also made me extremely mad because I felt like everyone was making me out to be the bad guy after going through a traumatic birth, so I replied, "I'm sorry if me being in labor for 2 days and pushing for 3 hours with no pain meds ruined your PTO," or something along those lines. She didn't respond and hasn't spoken to me since. My sister said they feel like I don't put in effort to have a relationship with them because I only want to come for a weekend and haven't spent a lot of time with them since moving states. So, am I the for being unwelcoming after giving birth? TLDR. I, 24F, and my partner, 24M, moved to another state after college and recently had a baby. My family, who we now live 8 hours away from, were really supportive during my pregnancy and spent a lot of time and money on us. Fast forward to baby time, I let them stay with us for a week despite my partner, and I wanting to spend the time with just us. I ended up having a traumatic birth and didn't let them meet the baby until the day after I gave birth. After they went home, they said I was unwelcoming and don't want to have a relationship with them because of this and moving away. Edit. First off, I want to thank everyone so much for your kind words and validation. I am definitely a people pleaser, so knowing that I wasn't in the wrong from a large majority makes me feel better. We're still going to Christmas. They spent $800 on our flights. But I'm going to go to a therapist to prepare to set firmer boundaries and let them know how hurt I was by them making everything about them. I will update with how that conversation went, which may be a while. My heart is with all the moms on here who have gone through something similar. Mom guilt is so real, and family dynamics are hard to navigate, so my love goes out to you all. I also made an edit because I saw someone say, wall of text, so I tried to break it up. I also wanted to add TLDR because of how long this post is. Hopefully that helps. This is my first Reddit post ever, so I don't really know common thread courtesy. OP is not an AH for demanding some space and setting clear boundaries for her family. Everyone has the right to have their personal space. OP's mother-in-law is an AH for blaming OP without any reason for disregarding her feelings. As for scores, I would rate OP's mother-in-law 1.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next chapter of this story from leave_no_trace38. AITA for telling my friends their unhealthy relationship with each other is why they are still single at 40. I, 38M, and my wife, 39F, have been married for 12 years. We met our friends, let's call Lauren, 41F, and Carly, 42F, about 3 years after we moved to our current city, and 2 years before we got married, known for 14 years. To say that they are close with each other is an understatement. They have lived together ever since we have known them. They love to go out together for drinks and get dinner together about once a week, if not more. They will get waxes together, set up elaborate birthdays, and even got French bulldogs together. Before anyone says anything, they are straight and have boyfriends in the past, though the longest relationship lasted only 1.5 years. We talk daily and hang out with them a lot as they live close to us, so it is not hard. They are mainly my wife's friends. I consider them my friends too, but she met them first, so she will spend time with them without me more than not, and I don't mind. They will invite us out frequently, even with their other friends as well, and we always have a good time. One issue we have is occasionally if we can't do something with them or go to hang with other friends without inviting them, they do get annoyed and will even say we don't want to hang out with them. This will usually blow over quickly, and we go back to acting like nothing ever happened. They are definitely our closest friends, even standing up in our wedding as bridesmaids. Now we also have my friend Marg, 38F. I have known her since grad school, and she is my best friend. Unfortunately, she lives about an hour away, so we can only hang out maybe twice a month if that. I have known her a little longer than my wife, but they have become close as well. Marg even helping me plan stuff for my proposal, and was at our wedding. Marg has hung out many times with Lauren and Carly. They gotten along amazingly. We all try to do a wine night once a month with some other friends too, and there has never been an issue between them. Once, maybe twice a year, Marg and I do a deep wilderness backpacking trip with some other friends of hers, both guys and girls. My wife doesn't come as it is not her thing, but we have done other trips in the past my wife has been on. She doesn't have any issues with this at all and has never been jealous of Marg. Currently, our camping group is planning on a 5-day hiking trip in Minnesota/Canada. We have flights booked, trails mapped, food sorted, and bags packed. Marg is spending a night before the trip, as we have an early flight, and I live close to the airport. We have had other friends spend the night before, so this isn't an unusual occurrence. We leave this Saturday, but 2 days ago, we had over Lauren and Carly, over for a margarita and taco night. All was usual. We had drinks, played a couple board games, and had dinner. However, Lauren brought up that it was weird how close I was to Marg. I responded by saying I didn't think our relationship was weird. She said guys and girls shouldn't have that close a relationship if they are just friends. I asked what she meant by that. She said, spending 5 days in the woods with your best friend is a little weird with friends of the opposite. I mentioned that we have done this for years and don't even do it that often. We aren't the only ones, and I go on more trips with my wife than I do with Marg. My wife tried to jump in and say she fully trusted me and has never had any reason to doubt me. Carly hopped in saying, just because you trust him doesn't mean it isn't weird. I was getting mad at this point, and was about to say something when Lauren pipped up saying, "I wouldn't be surprised if something has happened between them in the past." I was enraged by this, and this is the part I might be the. I said, "You two know nothing about a health relationship with friends. You two are so codependent, that's why you're still single at 40. They looked shocked and hurt, then got up immediately and left. My wife tried to stop them, but they wouldn't have it. It has been 2 days since the fight, and we haven't heard from them. My wife is mad at me for causing this issue, but does understand they took it too far, and does agree they are a little too close. I leave in 3 days, and I don't want to leave my wife alone to deal with this mess, but I have committed to this trip and would be hard to back out without affecting everyone going. So, AITA?" OP is not an AH here. Rather, his female friends Lauren and Carly are the AHs who overstepped his boundaries and tried to ruin his relationship with his wife by accusing him of having a romantic relationship with Marg, who is otherwise his platonic friend. So, OP is not an AH, and I would rate him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for Lauren and Carly, they are AHs, and I would give them each 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the last story of this chapter, from Ace_Ventura1296. Wibta. If I kick my sister-in-law out because her behavior is bordering on inappropriate. I, 38M, and wife, 34F, have been married for 7 years and have a decent partnership going on. A few months back, my wife received a call from one of her close relatives stating that their daughter, my wife's cousin, V, 21F, would be taking admission in a college in our city, and they wanted to know if she can put up with us as the rent in our city is sky high and her parents have limited funds to spare. She discussed it me and we happily agreed, as we have a 4-year-old daughter and we thought maybe it'll do her some good to have someone else in the house as well. Plus, I had met her parents a couple of times and I found them to genuinely warm people. V moved in a couple of weeks later. We had a spare bedroom, which we prepared for her, which she really liked. I helped her with all the formalities of college, and we also got a bus pass made for her so she could commute to and from the college. Initially, everything was going well. My daughter loved her aunt, and she would spend a lot of time with V. It also took some load of my wife, as being with a child 24/7 can cause a lot of stress. But after a couple of months, I started noticing weird behavior on her part. Firstly, she came home one day and announced that she had lost her bus pass and requested that I drop her to college on my way to office until she gets her pass issued again, which I thought was an honest mistake and could happen to anybody. But it was during those rides that I felt something weird was going on. First couple of days were fine, but on the 3rd day she started asking me questions about our marriage life. How did we meet? Who initiated the contact? How was the marriage going? Again, I thought she was just being curious. But then her questions started getting a bit personal. When did we do it for the first time? Do you guys still find time to have this after kids? I told her she doesn't have to worry about all that, and she should focus on her studies. Then she even had the guts to ask me if I am still attracted to my wife, as many men lose interest in their wives after a kid. Again, I brushed her off. If I asked her how her college was going, the only thing she would tell me is how all the boys keep checking her out and flirting with her. Nothing about education standards or professional studies. It took almost 3 weeks for her to get her pass renewed, which ideally takes only a day or two, and that too after I told her that I might not be able to do this daily, as I have to take a detour every day. This was just the start. I also noticed a change in her behaviors at home. She would time and again try and initiate physical contact. Like when we were sitting in the living room and watching TV, she would suddenly rest her feet on my lap, even though there was an empty 3-seater where she could have easily stretched her legs. The thing which made me suspect her behavior even more was that she would hardly talk to me in the presence of my wife. But whenever my wife was away, it felt like she was a completely different person. She even asked me for my Insta ID, and when I told her that I am not on Insta, she started showing me her pics from her Insta profile. I tried telling this to my wife, but she brushed it off as innocent banter. Now to the incident that has triggered me. My wife is visiting her parents' house for a few days along with our daughter. I usually come back from office at around 6 in the evening and head straight to the shower. Usually V comes back from her college at around 5 and sticks to her room until it's time for dinner when we all gather together. So, I reached home like always, glanced at her room and saw the door closed. I assumed she was back from college. I proceeded to take a shower before starting prep for dinner. But the moment I stepped out of the bathroom, I saw her standing in our bedroom going through my wife's wardrobe. I shrieked as I was just in a towel. She heard my voice and turned to face me with a surprised look on her face. Before I could say anything, she started explaining that her clothes were in the dryer, and she was looking for something comfy to wear in my wife's closet, and she didn't know that I was home. I told her that she can do it after I finish dressing up. She apologized again and left the room. I found her explanation a bit hard to believe, as I always came back from office at the same time, and she should have known better. Later, when I called her out for dinner, I was surprised to see what she was wearing. Normally, she would always dress up in modest clothes whenever my wife was around. But today, she came out of her room wearing the tiniest of shorts I'd ever seen her wearing, coupled with a thin strap spaghetti sort of top. She never wore something like this when my wife was around. Needless to say, the dinner was awkward. Just when I was about to convince myself in the head that I am thinking too much, she suddenly asks me, "Do you like girls in see-through clothes?" I was shocked to hear the question and asked, "What?" To which she says, "I saw quite a few see-through tops and linger in M's, my wife, closet." I didn't know what to say. I just told her that my wife buys whatever clothes she likes, and I have no role to play in clothing choice. Before she could ask any more stupid questions, I told her that I am taking dinner to my room as I have a presentation to finish, and took my plate and walked back to the bedroom. Now I am sitting in my bedroom and wondering what to do. My wife is supposed to be back day after, and I am not sure how to approach her about this. I don't want my wife to feel that her relatives are not welcome at our house. Plus, I am also worried about how the situation is going to play out if we kick her out. I don't want to put additional financial burden on her parents, and I am also worried if I am reading too much into the situation, and it could actually be a genuine mistake on her part, AITA, if I kick her out of the house. I find it hard to believe that all this could just be a coincidence or honest mistake. Edit, just called my wife and told her about the wardrobe and dinner incident. Also told her that we need to discuss the issue ASAP once she's back. She says she'll talk it out with her once she's back. Meanwhile, I've decided not to interact with V until my wife arrives. I feel it would be better that any interaction with V now happens in presence of my wife. Edit. Some people are asking me why I am calling her a sister-in-law, wife's cousin / and my daughter's aunt. English isn't my first language, but isn't my wife's sister, cousin sister or real sister, supposed to be my sister-in-law? And wouldn't she be my daughter's aunt? What else is my daughter supposed to refer to her as? OP is not an AH for being concerned about her wife's interactions with her cousin. OP is uncomfortable with the man's presence in their house, and it is necessary for him to ask his wife about the matter first, before taking any action. No one in this story is an AH, so I have nothing to give to anybody. AITA for telling my wife to show me her phone after I got an email accusing her of cheating. I, 47M, have a comfortable and fulfilling life. I have a job I truly enjoy. I live in a nice suburb and am blessed with 3 wonderful children, M8, F6, F4, and a lovely wife, Emily, 45. I've always felt Emily and I were an ideal match. However, a recent email I received has deeply unsettled me and planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Emily lived in the UK between 2010 and 2015, during which time she pursued a PhD. Because she lived there so long, she developed many close friendships and has made it a point to return every couple of years to maintain those ties. This past August, she traveled to the UK for 3 weeks to attend the wedding of one of her close friends. After some consideration, we agreed that it would be best for me and the children to remain at home, as I could not take that much time away from work, and the children were unlikely to find much enjoyment in such an event. Emily departed, returned as expected, and life returned to normal for us. Last week, I received an email on my work email address. It was supposedly from the wife of Emily's friend. I'll call him Jake, 44M. According to this woman, she has a very strong reason to suspect that Jake and Emily engaged in an affair. She listed off her suspicions, noting Jake had picked Emily up from the airport, spent considerable time at her hotel, and how the two of them frequently went out to dinner alone. She even included pictures of my wife's earrings that she said she found in Jake's pockets when she was doing the laundry, and pictures of a lipstick stain on his shirt. The color is one I recognize as something Emily often wears. There is some other evidence she listed off. For the sake of conciseness, I will not include them here. All this was a lot to absorb, and for a while, I thought it was some sort of joke, so I tried my best to ignore it, but it kept coming back into my mind. I remember that before her trip, my wife would talk to all her friends there. I don't know if this email is influencing my memory, but I think she probably spoke with Jake the most. Additionally, I know Emily never liked Jake's wife, though I can't say why. I've never pried into Emily's phone or social media accounts before, but I feel very tempted to now. However, I know I'd feel terrible if I looked and found nothing. Also, if I start acting suspicious, wouldn't she just delete everything out of fear of being found out? I am unsure of how to move forward and would welcome any guidance on handling this. The best I can currently come up with is asking to see her phone immediately after confronting her about it, so as to not give her no time to delete anything, though part of me thinks this would upset her, and potentially not even show anything. AITA? Edit. I forgot to include, my wife no longer has these earrings. She wasn't wearing them when she returned, and when I asked, she said she lost them. Update. A few hours after sharing my first post, I confronted Emily. She confirmed my fears. She claims she's in love with Jake and can't live a lie any longer. She still claims to love me and the kids, but says she can't stay with us any longer. According to her, she was waiting for a better time to tell me and the children. Apparently, this has been going on since March, with Jake flying out here occasionally and Emily secretly meeting him. We're getting divorced. Emily is moving to the UK soon. She confirmed that in August, in addition to the wedding, she attended a job interview, and she's set to start around the new year. She's already applied for a British visa. She plans to live with Jake once she moves. As for custody, Emily is voluntarily surrendering her chance of full custody. She doesn't want to uproot the kids, so they'll stay here in Canada with me. There's a part of me that appreciates that decision, but there's also the part that is astonished at how easily she's walking away. She wants to pay child support, but I'd rather raise my children without her financial influence. That said, the court will likely insist on support, regardless of my feelings. Emily is also seeking structured visitation rights, which, given the circumstances, will likely be granted. Based on what I've been told, the court generally leans toward arrangements that allow both parents to maintain relationships with the children, even when one is relocating to a different country. The lawyers are still working out the details, but it seems she'll have visitation during school breaks and holidays, with the possibility of virtual calls in between. I've been keeping things as amicable as possible, and the more cooperative I am, the more Emily seems to agree with my demands. We are also discussing the future of our home. Emily has expressed a desire to sell the property and divide the proceeds. While I am reluctant to part with the family home, it is unlikely I have much of a choice, since it was bought during our marriage. For now, our lawyers are still working through the details, and no final decisions have been made. Given the situation, it could be a good while before we reach a resolution. In the meantime, I've been advised not to make any major financial moves. As much as I want to stay here with the children, I know selling is most likely inevitable. As of this writing, Emily is in an Airbnb, and Jake has flown here to stay with her. They plan on traveling to the UK at some point in the near future. My lawyer tells me that adultery isn't grounds for special treatment when it comes to custody or property division. Therefore, it won't influence how assets are divided, unless marital funds are directly involved. Emily likely used money from her personal account. Unless it can be proven she used our joint finances to fund the affair, it's unlikely this will make any difference in court. I have been in regular communication with Jake's soon-to-be ex-wife, Eleanor, primarily through email, and more recently, we've spoken over the phone a few times. Eleanor apologized, saying she felt guilty for telling me about the affair, and worried that if she hadn't, maybe my marriage could have been salvaged. I reassured her that, for me, the gravity of the situation made divorce inevitable, and I'd rather not remain in the dark about something of this significance. She even sent me messages and other evidence of their relationship. But since Emily is openly admitting to the affair, it doesn't really matter in the context of the law. Eleanor has also told me a lot about Jake. Apparently, this is the third time he's cheated on her, and she's had enough. There's no chance of reconciliation this time, she says. And he doesn't seem interested in trying. She mentioned that Jake has zero desire to raise children who are not biologically his, which explains why Emily's not fighting for custody. Eleanor's divorce will most likely be much longer and more drawn out than mine, given that both her and Jake want full custody of their children and can't agree on several other issues. I haven't had much time to process everything. These past 2 weeks have felt like a blur in every way. But one thing I can say with certainty is that I have nothing left for Emily. Not because she betrayed our marriage, but because of how easily she's walking away from our children. I never thought I could hate someone I once loved so much. It's a strange feeling. The hardest part in all of this is the children. My 2 youngest daughters have started asking why their mother isn't around as much anymore, and it's been very difficult trying to communicate with them about the nature of the situation. My eldest seems to understand a little more, and as a result, he has become quiet and withdrawn. I'm fortunate to have a family that has been incredibly supportive so far. My children have received numerous thoughtful letters from some of their cousins, which I've been reading to them each night. All my siblings have also sent gifts for the kids, and one of my brothers, along with his wife, drove up to visit over the past weekend. My sister-in-law even prepared plenty of food, some of which is still in the freezer. They also kept the children entertained while I met with my lawyer. My other siblings have also offered to come by and look after the kids whenever I need them. Beyond that, my parents have been calling daily to check in on us, and my 78-year-old mother has already made plans to stay with us for 2 weeks in November to help around the house. The collective effort of my family has made this experience much more bearable, and I'm deeply grateful for all their support. To everyone who encouraged me to speak with Emily after my last post, I'm grateful. I was tempted to ignore Eleanor's message, but it kept gnawing at me. Your advice gave me the courage to act. Emily has shown herself to be a liar, and I have no doubt that her idea of a better time was simply when it would cause the least inconvenience for her and Jake. Second update. Think of this less as an update and more as a chance to vent a few things now that I've had more time to process my situation. I know that Emily often traveled back and forth to the UK during our marriage. She claims her affair with Jake only began in March 2024. But I'm convinced she's lying. It's almost certain that this has been going on for years. Given how much she had already prepared by the time I confronted her, it's become clear to me and everyone else that she had been planning this for some time. In fact, within a few short days of our confrontation, she already had certain legal documents prepared. Additionally, Jake arriving in Canada shortly after I confronted Emily made it clear that they had planned for her to tell me roughly around this date in advance. It makes sense that Emily was well prepared and was just waiting for things to be better lined up for herself. After all, she'd long since applied for her visa, secured a job, secretly appraised her car, our family car, though it was under her name, and sent personal items with Jake to the UK during his secret visits, all right under my oblivious nose. I have a feeling I'm only scratching the surface and have no real idea of how far this actually goes. Not that Emily would ever tell me its depth. In addition to all of this, Emily had already been in touch with her lawyer long before I confronted her. Taking all this into account, it's hard not to wonder if she secured her job even earlier than she let on, perhaps to make her actions seem less calculated. 2 of Emily's friends have since reached out to express shock and disappointment by her actions. One of them, Janet, mentioned that according to another friend, Emily had been consulting her divorce lawyer as far back as late August or early September. And this other friend also confirmed my suspicion that Emily had been sending some of her belongings to the UK during Jake's visits. I've been losing sleep, replaying the past few months in my mind, maybe driving myself a little crazy, but certain things stand out. For example, when Emily went to the UK in August for the wedding, she was carrying 3 fully loaded suitcases. She told me that they were filled with presents for her friends, and I didn't question it, even though it seemed a bit excessive at the time. When I picked her up from the airport after her trip, I noticed the bags were suspiciously light. I can assume that in addition to the job interview she claimed to attend, she transported a bunch of her personal items to the UK, which would explain why, since her return, she seemed to have been wearing a smaller selection of her clothing. Despite this, I was somehow blindsided, and I completely blame myself. Looking back, I can see there were signs I ignored, and I guess I didn't think Emily was capable of this sort of thing. A part of me wonders if this outcome could have been avoided entirely had I been more assertive and vigilant in the past. The worst part of all is that my children are now dealing with the consequences of my ignorance and stupidity. While I twiddled my thumbs, my wife had essentially started a new life. Most people in my life now know about my separation from Emily. I've stopped wearing my wedding band, and I've explained the situation to friends and colleagues who noticed its absence. One of my close friends, and many others who reached out privately on Reddit, have suggested I get DNA tests for the children, given Emily's travel patterns and tendency to lie. While I understand where they are coming from, this is something I'll never do. I'd never assign my children to another man. Nothing will change that. Life without Emily has thus far been difficult. Mornings have become a hectic rush. Between getting the kids ready and getting myself out the door, I'm barely on time for work for nearly half the week. It's frankly exhausting trying to keep up with all the extra parenting duties I have to perform throughout the day. Our current home has a large driveway, So on top of everything else, I'm already dreading the task of shoveling it once the snow starts falling. The kids are feeling the strain as well. They don't particularly like the food I prepare most days, and they hate how I'm always busy. It's incredibly frustrating to know that while we're here struggling, Emily recently departed for a relaxing vacation through Europe with Jake. Communication between us has dwindled, and I only learned of these developments recently. I have no idea if she plans to return to Canada after her vacation, or settle directly into what will likely be a very comfortable life in the UK. On a more positive note, I was able to get the kids to see their doctor recently. She gave me a bunch of useful resources and advice. She placed an emphasis on how time and clear communication were the most important factors for their adjustment. While I'm optimistic, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. It's still early, I know, but they remain quite upset about the entire ordeal and act out regularly as a result. It is abundantly clear that they're having a hard time adjusting to our new reality. Throughout all of this, my family has been a tremendous support. My mother arrived as promised early last week, and things have already become significantly easier. The kids enjoy her cooking and spending time with her. Her presence has also freed me to handle other tasks. Whenever the divorce is finalized, I plan to designate my eldest brother and sister-in-law as legal guardians for the children. They live relatively nearby and have already agreed to take on that role if needed, which brings me some peace of mind. However, I highly doubt this will be anytime soon. Given my much busier schedule and Emily dragging her feet before traveling, the whole process has slowed to a snail's pace. One of the hardest aspects of all this has been making decisions about our family home. After considerable thought and speaking it over many times with my family, I'm leaning towards selling at this stage. Emily has already offered me a bit more than half of the proceeds since she sold our SUV right before leaving the country. My lawyer has noted that selling the SUV before we finalized anything was premature on her part, considering I contributed significantly 40% to the purchase. He thinks I have strong grounds to seek reimbursement elsewhere in our asset division, which aligns with Emily offering more of the house. Getting more than half seems fair, given that I contributed about 65–70% of the down payment and monthly mortgage payments. As I mentioned above, the family SUV was registered in only her name. However, I covered about 40% of its cost, so it's frustrating she sold it unilaterally. As I've learned over the past several weeks, my sedan is too snug for the kids and inconvenient for my mother to duck in and out of when she runs errands. Therefore, I'll need to trade it for something larger. In return, Emily has graciously insisted I keep the furniture and appliances, least she can do, I suppose. As much as part of me would like to stay in our current home, it's probably better for us to move. Part of me hopes this will help us avoid future interference from Emily, though. In reality, she's just as likely to interfere no matter where we are. I've been looking at townhouses closer to my place of work, which would cut down my commute and place us near a well-rated school. However, my sisters brought up that moving the kids now would mean changing schools and losing their friends, which would be yet another big change for them. An alternative option is that we move to a smaller, more manageable house close to our current one. This would reduce my workload and allow the kids to stay at the same school. Regardless of which option we choose, the idea of a new home without Emily's memory is appealing. Our current home's location is yet another example of how foolish and short-sighted I've been. Its location was much more convenient for Emily's commute compared to my own. It worked out for a time as the children's school was close to Emily's work in case they needed her during the day. But now, all of this is useless, as my place of work is rather far. I've heard nothing from Emily's family, and frankly, I have no interest in reaching out. As for Emily's future with Jake, I don't wish her relationship to fail. The longer her life is stable, the less likely she'll disrupt ours. But I take solace in knowing she remains unaware of Jake's infidelity history. I don't feel any moral obligation to warn her about Jake's character, and Eleanor feels the same way. I've made a point to check in on Eleanor regularly. She doesn't have the same family support I do. Her immediate family is charmed by Jake's ample wealth and believes that she should do whatever it takes to keep him, even though it is clear that neither he nor Eleanor wants reconciliation. OP is not an AH here, rather her wife is an AH, a big AH, for cheating on her loving husband and deserting her kids. She is the most ungrateful woman I have ever heard of. OP isn't in the wrong here, so I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's ex-wife, she is a big AH, and I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from OK-Celis-1890. AITA for refusing to uninvite my maid of honor's ex to my wedding? I have known Kate, 23F, who was supposed to be my maid of honor, since 7th grade. When we were in 11th grade, she started having some complications with her home life, and she moved in with me, my parents, my younger sister, and my older brother whenever he was home from college for the rest of high school. One of my parents' only big rules was that we were not allowed to have significant others over at the house without their permission. Kate was always pretty quiet and followed the rules, so imagine my surprise when I walked into Kate's makeshift room to get my charger and found my brother asleep in her bed with her. I probably overrated just a little because I woke them up and told them they needed to rethink this situation. I said if our parents found out, they'd probably kick Kate out, and if anything happened between the two of them, it could ruin Kate's relationship with my whole family. Kate promised she would be careful and wouldn't let anything put our friendship in jeopardy. They didn't get caught and told my parents once Kate finally graduated. All seemed okay. Kate and my brother, 25M, dated on and off throughout the rest of her high school experience, and part of the way through college too. Their relationship was always very unhealthy and unstable, and my brother finally cut ties with her permanently over the summer before our junior year of college when he graduated and found a job a few hours away. Kate did not handle this well. We actually didn't talk at all for a few months, but reconciled when she came home for winter break. We mended our friendship but steered clear of mentioning my brother whenever we were together. My 24M husband and I have been together since my sophomore year of college. Kate had always been the biggest supporter of our relationship, so when it was time to pick a maid of honor after we got engaged, the choice seemed obvious. My now husband became close friends with my brother after we got engaged, and actually ended up making him one of his groomsmen. I mentioned this casually in front of Kate, who didn't seem to have much of a reaction, so I thought we would be in the clear since they had broken up about 3 years ago, and Kate had had other boyfriends since him. The problem arose 3 days before the wedding. Kate found out that my brother was bringing a +1 to my wedding. Out of nowhere, she blew up on me, telling me I was a horrible friend for letting him do that. I apologized, but reminded her that he is my brother and is important to me too. She stormed out and refused to talk to me the rest of the day. The next day, she showed up at my apartment and apologized for yelling. She said, "I will still attend your wedding as long as he isn't there." I said, "He?" She responded, "Your brother." Shocked, I explained to her that I couldn't just uninvite him to the wedding. He's my family. She told me she's my family too. I said I could try to talk to him about not bringing a +1, but she shut that down, saying that wasn't good enough because now she knows there would have been another girl there. She then repeated that if my brother is at my wedding, she won't be. I honestly don't think she expected me to do what I did, but I told her if she was making me choose which of them I'd rather have at my wedding, I wouldn't choose the person who gave me the ultimatum. I said my brother was coming to my wedding, end of story. She lost her mind screaming at me before leaving my apartment and blocking me on everything. It's been almost 2 months since everything happened. My wedding was incredible, and my cousin stepped up to be my maid of honor. My brother and his date were wonderful company, and I am glad I didn't uninvite them. However, this week I have been reflecting on Kate and I's relationship, and have been feeling really down. I can't help but think I might have been a bit too harsh in making the decision I did, but I also don't know what a good alternative would have been. Yes, they're exes, but one of them is my brother, and the other was my best friend. What else could I have done? Also, Kate had promised me years ago that she wouldn't let anything between them ruin our friendship. Am I wrong to hold her to that standard we set like 6 years ago? I honestly don't know. Please tell me. AITA? OP is not an AH for prioritizing her brother over her dramatic friend. OP's friend is being unreasonably demanding and silly. So I would rate OP's friend 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump on to the next story from Happy-Zebra, 2999. AITA for not wanting to keep the peace during the holidays? My 21F family consists of me, my sister, 19F, mom, 45F, dad, 52M, and grandparents, mom's side. My aunt and uncle also are a huge part of the family, but are not a part of what is going on. Long story short, my dad has always been an angry man from the day I can remember. Whether it was him pushing my grandpa down a hill when I was a child, or the weeks we spent staying at my grandparents' because my parents were fighting, I have seen him emotionally and verbally abused me and my siblings and mother my entire life. To mention, and what plays a huge part in this story, is that my dad is an extreme right-wing Republican Trump supporter, you name it. When I was in HS, my mom found out that I am a lesbian and I got grounded for months, all while keeping it from my dad. It was really tough, but my mother and I's relationship has grown since then, and she loves my girlfriend of 5 years. My dad, on the other hand, I am not sure even knows. We do not talk at all. I am about an hour away at school, and when I do visit home, he either goes in his room and shuts the door, or keeps himself busy enough to not engage. My mom spends all of her time trying to force us to have a relationship, but it is just clear he does not really like me. I came to this conclusion recently when I found out my dad talks to and treats my sister completely normal, and even pays her rent. With the election year, there has been a lot of tension at home when I visit, specifically from my dad. Fast forward to election day. I shared a post on Facebook that read, "Men who vote for rapists do not respect women." My dad was on my mom's phone and saw the post that I shared. He does not have Facebook because the family had to force him off during the 2016 election, for reasons I'm sure you can assume. Once he saw the post, my mom told me not to visit home that day, as I was planning to. She said my dad was pissed about my Facebook post. Then my dad texted me for the first time in forever, a paragraph about how I called him a rapist and that he is cutting me off. WTF? I will admit, I responded with the laughing, crying emoji and kept saying, "I'm not doing this with you." He goes on insulting me, blowing my phone up, calling me a coward, failure, and trying to threaten me to return the car home. While all of this was going on, I was sending my mom the screenshots, and she was assuring me that she was not taking my car, that's everything is in her name, and that she will get to all of it after her meetings at work. As soon as her meetings are over, my dad took his anger out on her, and even tried calling the cops on me to report the car stolen, and tried throwing all of my things away. He even told my mom to pick between me and him. They had a huge fight, which resulted in me having my phone service turned off, and logged out of streaming services since that's the only thing he actually has over me. My mom is the breadwinner. My mom left my grandparents for the night and has been talking divorce ever since. I am very close with my grandparents, and when my grandmother heard and saw all the nasty things he was saying to both me and my mom, she was 100% against my dad. My dad decided to up and drive 14 hours out west. Dramatic, I know. While he was gone, he did not speak to anyone but my sister, who at the time had no clue what's going on. He was sending her pictures of his trip, like nothing even happened. Like he did not just cut me off and make my mother choose between me and him. This entire time he has been gone. My mother has been making plans for divorce, talking with me and my grandma about selling the house, getting on a new phone plan, and new cars. My mom made it very clear she's done with him, and it was a long time coming after everything he's put us all through, until he came back. My mom said she was going to talk to him, and afterwards called me to tell me how he was crying and wants to talk to me and knows he messed up. Are you serious? Like he does not just get to put on that whole show and make both me and my mom cry for days and come back around. Let alone after the things he said to me, I do not want to talk to him anytime soon. My mom goes on about how my sister is upset and stressed about Thanksgiving and her birthday coming up in December, and she just wants to get through the holidays together. I did not have it in me to argue back with her until she mentioned right after that I should come home next week to talk to my dad. This made me furious. I said absolutely not, and I will not be talking to him for a long time, and I will not be going to Thanksgiving or Christmas either. She got really upset and said I am wrong for not just doing this for her, and that divorce isn't still completely off the table, but I've seen this cycle before. It's just that she has never confided in me about wanting to leave him, and she even said that there is no going back from this. I feel like she is just forgetting about everything he did and spoke. Even my grandparents are furious she's not staying strong against him, but they're saying to just keep the peace for the holidays. AITA for not wanting to go home and keep the peace? OP is not an AH for setting boundaries and prioritizing her mental peace and well-being. She cannot be an AH for all this because she has every right to distance herself from her toxic father. This passive-aggressive approach of her father cannot be justified. Kudos to OP for standing up for herself. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP's father 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. AITA for telling BF he isn't noticing how inappropriate his relationship with his SIL is. He, 31M, has a good relationship with his brother's girlfriend. They would text and talk and hang out often with his brother present. He showed appreciation to her as she said she loved them, brother and partner, One time when they were out camping, and their bond grew stronger. They've known each other a very long time. She's been with the brother over a decade, but grew closer to my BF about a year or two before I came in the picture. She texts him about random things and questions about making plans on behalf of his brother, etc. I didn't think anything of it, and thought it was pretty normal. My BF was giving me a hard time about spending time with me, and pretty much stopped dating me, and when we'd go on simple dates that I insisted on, he was very transparent on how he hated every second of it. However, he was very excited anytime a hangout would pop up with his brother and his SIL. Usually, she was the one to reach out to him about the plans, not the brother. I started to notice how he would pretty much be on go whenever she reached out. For example, I would ask him for simple things like taking out the trash and he would not do it. But if she called, asking that he goes pick up a package for her, he would instantly drop whatever he was doing to oblige. He would often be invited over at their place, and was very happy to spend the time with them. I would go sometimes. Other times, it was just him. Sometimes she'd text me with the plans, but I'd politely decline or not respond. And then she'd reach out to him directly, even though I already responded on our behalf. I found this odd and found it to be a bit of a boundary cross. It seemed off-putting to me because she would try to convince him despite already having an answer, and sometimes he'd change his mind and end up going. I also found this disrespectful because to me that seemed like she didn't respect me as an equal partner to my boyfriend, like I couldn't possibly be speaking for both of us in something we discussed, so she just had to go directly to him behind my back to get her answer. I also felt like it put me in a bad light that he sometimes would change his mind while talking to her and go because I thought it could possibly have them thinking I was the one rejecting them and keeping him from them. I asked my BF why she was reaching out directly to him, and he got an attitude. Anyway, my BF and I weren't speaking after a heated argument, and I walked in on him editing pictures of his SIL. I asked him about the picture, and he said since her birthday was coming up, he wanted to do something nice for her. He never initiated any celebrations for my birthdays. In fact, did not acknowledge my 30th birthday at all. The past celebrations we had were initiated by me, and he was not happy to be doing them. But here he was editing pictures of another girl for her birthday, because he wanted to do something nice to celebrate their special day. Around the same time, he brought her up one time we were watching TV, saying the character reminded him of her, and I noticed him starting to say words that his SIL would say, the same way she would say them. He also said her name meaning to say mine while speaking to his brother. I started to notice how all of those things made me feel extremely uncomfortable, so I finally told him there was lack of boundaries between them and that he needed to reaffirm the fact that our relationship was his priority, so that she'd stop being so comfortable reaching out constantly like that. I explained to him that she didn't owe me anything, so of course it wasn't inappropriate of her to want to continue a close bond with him. It was inappropriate of him to allow that to continue to happen, as if I wasn't in the picture now. He was in a relationship with me, so it was his job to behave in a way that clearly communicated that to people, and that from that people would pick up and behave accordingly to respect our relationship. I also told him how I noticed his behaviors changing, and that they were resembling her mannerisms, and that it made me feel uncomfortable. He went off on me, accusing me of accusing him of being in love with his brother's girlfriend. Of course, I was appalled that was the first thing he said in response. He also said I had a thing against the SIL. I don't have any problems with her. I've enjoyed her company a handful of times, and would probably have a much closer relationship with her if it wasn't for the fact that I can't allow her any more closeness to us BC. It's already so out of order on their end. I also told him this, and he refuted the fact. He said I was jealous of her and delusional, and then started to talk about other things he found troubling in our relationship. I asked why he was deflecting now, and he completely flipped out on me, saying that he felt so disgusted and ashamed of what his family would think once they found out what I was saying, and he didn't even want to think of how his family would react if they were to find out I said those things, so he wasn't even going to tell anyone BC of the big shame he would feel, and complete embarrassment and disappointment in me. OP is not an AH, and her reaction is 100% justified because her boyfriend's behavior falls in the territory of emotional cheating. OP's boyfriend is an AH for being attracted to his brother's girlfriend and dismissing OP genuine concerns. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets at 0. Let's now jump onto the next story. From Dark Elizabeth _Eng, my ex left me the day before our wedding. AITA, my 29F, and my ex 27M were going to get married today. Right now, I should be celebrating with all our family and friends. But instead, I'm crying in my parents' bathtub while my dad accepts the wedding cake downstairs. I'll probably sound nuts, but I still love him and miss our life. It's really gone now. About 2.5 years ago, my ex and I met at a work training. It was like maybe 2 months after a man had died on location due to an accident. We both worked in a remote fly-in, fly-out mining site. Despite being there for over a year, we had never crossed paths. 3,000-person site. At this training, I got sat with him, and we just clicked. He was gorgeous, funny, clever, and just a kind person. It was like meeting a peaceful sunset as a person. I messaged him after the training, and he seemed as interested in me. Our country went bananas due to the pandemic, so it made it hard to catch up at first. But I loved every minute of our journey. He came with me to my sister's wedding in America, very long way from our home country, and he just fit in so perfectly. He made me feel like I was enough of everything. He even told my family and friends I was the best thing that happened to him. He was certainly the light in my life when I have struggled for so long. He made me look at myself as worthy and to do things to improve me for my own sake. I'm not the best person. I've actually been a horrible person in my life. I've really hurt people before I recognized that I was broken inside and needed help. 5 to 6 years ago, I sought help and found I met the conditions for a lot of things. Bipolar, ADHD 1, ADHD 2, depression, manic compulsion, sound sensitivity. However, I mainly fell into the autism spectrum. I think I am okay with this. I tried lots of medications and found one that suited me. My ex hated that I took medication. Lots of people in my country think they are just happy pill. But I need the extra help to regulate my emotions and feel normal. I still go to therapy now, as I know I am a work in progress. I'm trying my best to love me, as I am not for who I think I should be. These last 2 weeks have been the worst of my life. Since he and I started dating, I took a job in the main city so we could see each other more. We moved into a house after we lived in my apartment, and we bought a dog home a year ago today. To me, this was my forever and ever person. I've never felt such a deep and gentle love for someone. I could have cared if he wasn't handsome, or strong, or made money. To me, just being himself authentically was the best thing I could see. My ex comes from a big family. This is where I think I might be the AH. His mother, XMIL, F53, is very different when he is around and when he is not. She lives for drama, to be the main character, and to that degree, so does his sister, XSIL30F. Over the years, before me, my ex broke his back for his family. Every dollar he made went to them. I don't want to disclose their business, as I still love him and them dearly, but I knew he needed to not be their cash cow, as he was their son and brother. My ex has 3 younger siblings, 20M, 18F, and 16F. They are the best people you would ever get to meet. I miss them, and I love them so much. I've got to see them grow into wonderful people, despite having a fractured home life. X's dad, 60M, works away for majority of the month, and XMIL works a lot as a shift worker. In May, X and I fell pregnant. I was so careful, but baby stopped growing at 6 weeks, and I started to miscarry at 8. My heart aches for that baby, as I've always wanted kids to love and see grow. I still think about them a lot. I thought X did too, but I'm not even sure anymore. 18F 2 weeks ago. She's been struggling on and off for a while, and trusted me with her thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore. Honestly, I felt my heart break. She's lovely, kind, sassy, and a beautiful young lady, sharp as a tack and drives like a maniac, but she's got a soft heart. Her first boyfriend has moved to a country far away, and I think she felt alone. Being 18, adult in our country, I figured let's help. I've been there, in that dark place feeling alone. I tried to be what I needed, to listen, to go to the doctor and get help from a professional. XMIL did not like this. She liked to control the people around her. I don't really mind mostly, but 18F needed support, and that's my bottom line. I didn't disclose her details to her mother because she wasn't ready. XL made it plain that she doesn't care about F-18 rights and demanded to know the details. I shared what I thought was appropriate, but this is an adult, not a child. This came to a head a week ago when F-18 was thought to have had a seizure, maybe due to the new antidepressants. X phoned his mother and told her what was going on. I disagreed, but I don't make the calls with his family. X wants not happy. There were tears and a fight. We never fight. I hate the loud shouts, so we always calm down and resolve our problems. I pledged with him to advocate for his sister. This was Saturday night, and F-18 stayed with us that night. X-F-18 and X-Mill sat at my home on the Sunday morning to discuss the situation. I advised X that I couldn't be part of it as it was his family. Plus, I was mad and didn't want to cause more issues than needed. In that moment, my feelings on the situation didn't matter. F-18 needed help. I hope she is now. That same Sunday was my bridal shower. I've been so excited for weeks as it is at the second best restaurant in our city, and I spent about approximately $950 to take the important women in my life out. This specific place only does 1.5-hour bookings for large groups. There was 19 of us, so big group, 2 big tables. X thinks it wasn't on purpose, but his family, 8 guests, was 1 hour late. F-18 messaged me, I think just past the booking time, saying they will be there in 10 minutes. X-Sil brought 3 out of 5 kids. Totally fine. Those kids are awesome. The issue was, they could park the 2 cars? In my city, there are so many parking areas, and why not research it before the day? Drop some people off? X-Sil messaged me, I think 30 minutes after he booking, saying they were looking for parking. I had my hands full with, my bridal party. They came in after an hour. I greeted them, remember that, but they just flopped down at their chairs, and I went back to organizing the food to start coming out again. The session ended about 30 minutes later, but my sister paid for the extension so that X's family wouldn't be rushed. I stayed till most of my guests had left, and just message, and my best friend got up to sit with them. They were at the other table. They just kind of didn't give a dokey about being there. I was getting upset, so I said, bye family, and left with my friend. I dropped my bestie off maybe 30 minutes later. I was still upset, so called X to vent. Keep in mind he has never stood up to his family for me, and I have never asked him to. X saw red and yelled at all of them. Given I was still going over it, I stuffed some details. Main points are, they were 1 hour late, they didn't greet me properly, and they were kind of rude to my guests, aka my mum and bridesmaids. The point X-Mel and X-Sil are getting stuck on is not greeting me, which I greeted them and they just behind me, and they kept saying they had messaged me. My ex has done a total flip. AI have lied apparently. The next day, Monday, I was still feeling pretty fragile. X was so mad, but the only one home Sunday night was me. The only one being yelled at and listening to him hit stuff and punch stuff in the garage was me. X used to be a fighter and is still a very capable fighter, so I have no hope if he decides to swing that my way. He has never ever done that, but I also haven't seen him go nuts and bashing a surfboard to bits before. I wanted things to be okay. I wasn't ready to talk it all out. I wasn't really sure what I had done wrong at that point, but I shouldn't have whined to him about his family. That's not fair to him. XMIL wanted to come have a big talk about it that Monday night. I really wasn't ready, but I tried to comprise, saying I would listen and hear her out. First thing she says is, "What do you think happened?" Dude, what? Actively listening means I don't talk. X was a terrible mediator. X-Emil basically started a rant, how X called all his immediate family and yelled at them because I lied and set him off. I point blank told X that I had told him, and I had, that she would blame me. I felt like I was going to explode, so I picked up my things and went to my parents' place. When I got there, I just sobbed. I love X. I would do anything as I put him first. We were a team. My father calmed me down and X asked if he could come over. I thought he'd be calm, but he was immediately pissed and said, "What F was that?" That's autism, my dude. Overwhelmed, seek safe place. That's my deal anyway. I like to talk things out when I'm calm, have reflected, and try to see things in perspective. X left and I eventually went back to our home. Since then, X was a wreck. He's been crying nonstop. He's been inconsolable, and I even spent most of my therapy session Thursday trying to get myself to a place to talk to his family. I just wanted to wait until after the wedding. I sent their group chat this message on the Tuesday night, after X had approved it. Hi X's family. I wanted to reach out because I know things have gotten tense, and I'm really sorry for any hurt or misunderstandings that came from my words or actions. When I talked to X, I was just venting in a moment of stress and frustration. I didn't think through how it might affect everyone else. I never intended to cause any upset, and I regret that it's unfolded that way. Please know that I love and value each of you deeply, and your feelings mean so much to me. As someone who processes emotions differently, I sometimes need a little extra time and space to work through intense situations. I'm learning ways to handle my reactions in a constructive way, and I hope you can understand that this isn't about avoiding anyone, but about ensuring I can show up as my best self with all of you. Both X and I feel so grateful to have you in our lives, and we truly want to share this special day with you by our side. Right now, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and need a little space to regroup, as there's a lot on my plate at the moment. I hope you can understand, and I look forward to being with all of you with a clear mind and open heart. Thank you for your understanding and patience. It means a lot to me, and I hope we can move forward together with love. X still replied, no one else did, with this. I appreciate the effort of your words in this message. My concerns are, how is this going to get resolved if you aren't willing to have a conversation anytime soon, asking for more space? A storm was created unnecessarily, but you still don't want to sort it out? I hope things can be better for the future. Friday was our rehearsal. X-Mill and X-Sil did not attend, despite X-Sil's husband being a groomsman. When we got home, X completely feels apart. I held him for every step. For anyone who has seen their loved one fall apart, knows that it's the worst feeling in the world. He said he didn't think he could go through with the wedding anymore. Saturday, I tried to hype him up so he could at least try and enjoy his bachelor party. Doing some car racing thing, crazy car people. He called and asked to come home. We spoke a little, but I advised that if he regrets what he said to his family, he should go and see them. Terrible suggestion by me. That night, I went to my parents as I was also in tears. X wouldn't answer my calls or texts. Eventually, my mother called his mother. My parents invited them over to see if they could smooth things over so me and X could still get married. X came later, but he couldn't look at me. I straight away said, I love you, and all I want is to marry you. He said he can't marry me. There is a bit more, but my memory has been horrible the last few days. He left with his parents and ex-SIL. I went home as I have responsibilities to my pets, and I wanted to sleep in my bed. Today was our wedding day. My sister was the planner, and when she began to call the vendors to cancel, they told her that XMIL had already called to cancel midday the day before. Why come to my parents' home if you weren't going to try and support your son? I've just been crying. My family packed up his things, and his family came with a moving truck to take his things and the dog we shared. I didn't want Pup to be something to fight about. I'm just here, trying to find a place to donate 200 cupcakes. AITA? OP is not an AH, rather her boyfriend and his family are AHs who make such a big decision impulsively and out of a minor conflict. They threw cold water on her efforts to take care of his family. It is truly humiliating. OP's ex-in-laws are AHs, and I would rate them each 4 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP, she gets a 0. Let's now jump onto the next story from Mojo Dojo, Casa 31. AITA for blocking my toxic sister while my dad is sick. I, 27 F, my sister, 39 soon to be 40 F, my brother, 43 M. My dad, 66 M, has been recently diagnosed with an aggressive cancer. My sister and brother haven't really talked to each other for the past 8 years. With my sister, it's always hot and cold. We argue a lot. We're very different. We don't agree on many things. Last week, my brother texted my mother that he would come visit us. Context. My father might need a major treatment, and we were meeting his new doctor virtually. My brother wanted to be there. He lives 4 to 5 hours away by car, even though he could have been there online. My mother told my sister he'd be there. She replied, "Then I won't come. Enjoy your son," which led her to text me late at night, essentially ranting about our brother. Now that things are bad again, he reappears and will act like the savior who suddenly cares about our parents, blah blah blah. I told her immediately that I understand, but that I'm uncomfortable with that. She then said that we're always on my brother's side. That's everything's my fault if they don't talk to each other. Because she tried to defend me a few years ago when her wife's aunt insulted me, that she experienced the consequences of that situation because she wanted to help my little sister. I replied that our parents need us all three right now. That's all I had to say. To which she answered that she always proved that she, and only her, was always there for our parents since his diagnosis. I replied, I have no idea why this energy is falling on me tonight, but I don't deserve it. I'm sorry you feel this way. I love you. Mom and Dad love you. But I don't deserve to receive these messages that put me in an uncomfortable situation. See you tomorrow. And then she essentially threw a fit. I'm sorry to share with you how I feel. The message is clear. I can't rely on you. I'll know what to do next time you come to me for advice. I'm always there to give you advice, listen to you. But I understand that I have no right to do the same with you. I'll stay away from this family now. I told her that I understand she has anger, but it was really inappropriate. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. She was like, you're giving me responses straight out from your therapist. I'll always be there for Mom and Dad, but yeah, they need all three children, not just one. Because she thinks she's the only one supporting them, helping them, etc. I told her to call her therapist the next day, and then blocked her. The thing is, she's always talking like to me. She's not a bad person, but she's meant all the freaking time. She has no filter. She's impatient, rude, toxic, stubborn, and she's a bully. She always has been. Last year, around the same time, we had another fight because I told her that was getting stuck in some kind of culture thing, and she told me that I was a know-it-all. And anyway, yes, she's there. Yeah, she can be supportive. When I need advice, she's there. But she's also super judgmental every single time. She's always been jealous because I am the younger sibling, that I got more opportunities than her, more financial help from my parents. She's had at least 2 burnouts. She's in depression, has anxiety. I also have depression and anxiety. I know she's miserable and lonely. She can't keep a boyfriend because she doesn't want to compromise. I almost never, ever said something. Never defended myself, always shut up. It's like walking on eggshells. Everything you say, no matter how you say it, will turn against you. It's exhausting. She even texted my mother today and told that she's the victim in that story, that I should take accountability for my decision of blocking her, that everything is either my fault or my brother's fault. In therapy, I realized that, for my mental health, it's better to stop putting energy on this. And yet, here she is. I don't regret blocking her. This is literally the first time I set my limits. Enough is enough. I know she started it, that I was respectful. But still, I'm sad and confused, and I feel guilty about my father, who's getting worse and worse. He wanted her to be there. AITA for blocking her? I know I can't change her. But what would you do in this situation? For my father's sake. And my sanity? LOL. OP is not an AH for setting boundaries and blocking her toxic sister. So, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's sister, she is a big AH for falsely accusing OP of rude behavior when she is the one who is messing up things and creating drama at home. OP's sister is a big AH, and I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from interesting_kale_705. AITA, if I skipped my family's Christmas. I'll try to make this short, but I need to know if I would be the asshole. For a little bit of context, my family bought a family home. 5 beds, 2 baths, 2 living rooms. So I live at home. My sister lived at home until 21. I'm 20 F. My sister is 22 F, and my brother is 18 M. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I can start with the problem. My brother has been dating this girl, code names will be Elaine and George, for about 3 years. Elaine has always been a bit of problem in my family, because she has proven herself to be extremely dishonest. When they were still in high school, she would come over promising she had a ride, and she very often actually did. This was a bigger deal than normal, because we live in different towns, so the drive there and home is about an hour and a half. And she would wait until 10 p.m. to tell anyone she needed one. So my sister, my boyfriend, or my parents would end up being out until 12 taking her home. Originally, it was just petty high school stuff. She's always been somebody who thinks being mean is funny, but it was all just more annoying than anything. A while ago, I had been told by a friend. We all went to school together. She had been calling me and my mum names in class. I didn't think too much of it, and just blocked her on everything because she used to text me begging me to wake my brother up from naps to talk to her, and once, she had texted me angry about my Halloween costume. A month or two ago is when the actual problem arose. I'm a new mom and made friends with another new mom who used to be friends with Elaine. She sent me messages of Elaine calling both me and my baby names. I didn't say anything to my brother until she started trying to fight people over dumb stuff, and then I brought it all to his attention. She texted me, and when I started trying to talk to her about the whole situation, she started sending voice messages making fun of me for getting knocked up and not going to college. My brother also didn't go to college, so that's really weird. Also, I was 20 when I had my daughter, and that's not really a weird age to have kids. In the past, she's also called my sister and 2-year-old niece whores for needing a ride from my brother. Anyways, I ended up blocking her again and telling my mom about the situation. After this, my brother mysteriously moved out. Days after my brother came over to pick up his car, my mom had taken it into a shop to pay for repairs. Elaine has already not been allowed at our house, but snuck in anyways. When my mom went to say bye to my brother, Elaine was standing on top of his car and jumping on it. Obviously, she told her to stop, and this started a huge argument where Elaine was calling her a whore and a deadbeat, and just generally being disrespectful. My brother did nothing, and in the past has done nothing. My entire family is extremely uncomfortable around Elaine, but my mom has started inviting her to our family events. My mom has even gone as far as to ask me to lie to my sister about Elaine coming, because she won't come if she knows Elaine is going to be here. She has trapped me at least twice by lying to me about Elaine coming. When Elaine is here, she speaks to nobody but my mom and my brother. My stepdad, me, my boyfriend, and my sister's family are all extremely uncomfortable. Anyways, on to the Christmas stuff. My mom has invited Elaine and George to stay the night at our house on Christmas evening. I don't want to be around her, especially on a holiday that is supposed to be for family. My sister is already pissed and doesn't want to come because my mom continues to have family nights, but it's just guilt tripping me into canceling my plans, inviting Elaine and George, and not inviting my sister because she assumes I will. I have talked to my mom a handful of times about the situation to try and tell her how uncomfortable it makes everybody. Plus, as a mom, I don't want Elaine around my infant baby that she's called fat and ugly or my niece that she called a whore. But my mom just screams that I'm being petty and that she won't get to see her son if Elaine can't come. What should I do? I don't want to miss Christmas because it's my daughter's first, but I know the day will be ruined and filled with anxiety if Elaine is there. OP is not an AH, rather her brother's girlfriend is an AH for her toxic behavior. Also, OP's mom seems to be unreasonable for inviting Elaine to family events despite knowing history of her toxic behavior. OP's refusal to attend the party in the presence of Elaine is 100% justified. As for scores, I would rate OP's mother 1, Elaine 2.5, and OP 0 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story, Educational-Slice 488. AITA. For shouting and storming out of my friend's house? Around July time, I met my girlfriend. For privacy's sake, we'll call her Emily, and a new friendship group. There were 8 of us, and I knew 2 of them before, both being childhood best friends. I was getting to know a lot of people, including my girlfriend, and it was a pretty fun time. This was until pretty recently, where me and my ex started having a bit of relationship issues. I felt as though she has started to distance herself, no longer wanting to go on dates with me, or calling and texting. I missed her a lot, so I decided to have a conversation with her about it. I called her, telling her I felt her distance, and was wondering if I had done anything wrong, to which she asked if I was crying and then laughed. I asked her for the first time if this was a relationship she wanted, and she said yes. I hung up, still really upset, but acted like everything was normal. This was until we hung out with the friendship group again. We both got very drunk, and she asked me that if we were to ever break up, would I make the friendship group turn on her? I got really upset at this, and ended up leaving the party crying. I ended up messaging her, saying if we could talk about this in person, to which we did. I asked her if this was a relationship she wanted to continue, and she said yes. We spoke about some other things and it was going well, or so I thought. Halloween night comes around, and the friendship group has a party to celebrate. We're having a lot of fun, just doing normal teenage. I'm hanging out with Emily as much as I can, and I feel she's starting to get sick of it, which I understand, so I give her some space. We both get really drunk, and she confesses she doesn't like kissing me. My heart shatters. I'm really upset. It's a thing that hurts to hear from someone you love. She suggests maybe we should break up. I agree. That night was our anniversary as well. I'm heartbroken to say the least, and I decide to head over to a friend's house to sulk the following Monday. The entire morning and night before, one of my friends has also been having some issues, so I've spent those few days burying my issues to make sure he was okay. And it actually helped me out a lot, to not focus on my own issues. So, once I get there, the two of them, let's call them Ryan and Julia, just let me dump everything I'm feeling about the breakup. I had been asking Julia the night before and the Monday what Emily had said to her, since apparently they had also had a conversation about our breakup. She wouldn't tell me anything, understandable since privacy and all. But what pissed me off was that Ryan showed me the voice note Emily has said about the breakup, where she had confessed to losing feelings for me months back. I was angry. I was angry at Emily for leading me on, and I was angry that my so-called friends never decided to tell me. So, I got really angry. I was shouting, but never at either of them, just at the situation. I was upset at myself for getting played like that. So, I put my shoes on, took my jacket, and stormed out without saying goodbye. I head home, and I messaged them both asking how long they knew about this. They knew since the party. I got pissed off that they kept this from me for so long and told them to not message me again. I messaged Emily about it and asked her if I was a huge joke to her. She said she didn't want to add on to what I was already going through, which I think is stupid. From the first time I brought up how I was feeling and asked if she wanted to break up, till the last time I asked her at the party, she had all those times to break up with me, but she never did. I was feeling lost and heartbroken. I had lost 2 friends who were dear to me and a partner. I haven't messaged Ryan, Julia, or Emily since. But today, I woke up from a nap from Ryan's girlfriend. To sum things up, she said that I took advantage of Ryan and Julia's friendships and that I was aggressive to them. And that in the end they did me a favor and I shouldn't act like the victim. She then brought up how they were good friends when I was going through some stuff at home and how he let me stay at his for a bit. That they were good friends to me because I opened up to them, and they shouldn't have to feel guilty for their actions. I got upset at this, and said that I had comforted both her and him during their tough times, and that I never held it against them because it's common decency as friends. She then said not to blame anyone else but Emily from the fact that I was being played. I said I didn't, but was upset at the lack of respect from my friends. I would let any one of them know if their spouse was playing them, rather than keeping it a secret. She then proceeded to say that there was no point in having a conversation about it, considering I don't want to talk blame for my actions and that I'm self-sabotaging. She then proceeded to say I can cuss her out all I want. I was shocked at that since I only spoke to her with respect and made sure to express how I was feeling without taking it out on her. AITA? OP is not an AH for his reactions, because his friend didn't tell him the truth. Given this, his reaction is justified, especially when it involves his girlfriend's betrayal. Here, OP's friends are AHs for hiding the truth. Hiding the truth is equal to lying. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP's friends 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. AITA for leaving my husband after he was diagnosed with cancer. Me, F36, and my husband, M41, have been married for 8 years. 4 years ago, I myself was diagnosed with sarcoma. We caught it a bit late, and it's honestly a miracle I survived. I won't go into details, but I underwent chemotherapy followed by surgery, and it was the most brutal, painful, and terrifying year plus of my life. During this time, my husband was distant. He's always been a bit of a workaholic, but he took it to the extreme. I was told over and over to be understanding BC, he was likely using it as a coping mechanism. So even though I was furious and hurt, I grit my teeth and gave him his space. A little over half a year after I was declared cancer-free, I found out that while I was fighting to survive, he had an effing affair. His best friend knew, and he admitted it to his wife, who I wasn't particularly close to, But I guess she felt upset enough on my behalf to tell me. That or too guilty to keep quiet about it. I was in disbelief, but at the same time, I just knew it was true. It was like everything clicked. Long story short, I confronted my husband, he lied, and I just kept pushing and pushing until he confessed. Apparently, me being sick and almost dying had been too much for him, and he'd been scared and felt like he couldn't talk to me because he didn't want to load his onto me when I was already dealing with so much. And at first, his coworker was just someone to confide in. But one thing led to another, and they started sleeping together. He ended things with her about 4 months after my surgery. We separated after that. I know I should have divorced him, I know that. But at the time, I just didn't want to deal with it. I was heartbroken, trying to get my life back together, and honestly, just depressed. Fast forward about another year, and my dad passed away. At that point, my husband was constantly reaching out to me to apologize, or ask how I was doing, or tell me he missed me and regretted everything, and how much he hated himself for what he did, and I was weak and let him back in. He really stepped up and helped with funeral preparations when me and my mom were grieving. He took care of everything. He became someone I could lean on again, and he was trying so damn hard. It was like how it was before everything fell apart. I missed that so much. So, I let him back in and decided to try again. We started marriage counseling, started dating again, relearned each other. I chose to forgive him, even though a part of me was still bitter as hell. I just shoved that part down deep and figured it would go away with time. And things were fine, for the most part. We weren't as close as we used to be, but trust takes time, right? 4 months ago, my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer, which runs on his side of the family. He started radiation therapy, and it's been extremely hard on him. I've been by his side from the second the diagnosis was made, and I hate myself for it. But all I can think is that when I was in his place, he was out there f***ing another woman. When he's vomiting into the trash and I'm rubbing his back or making him tea, all I can think is that I had no one to do that for me, because he was never there. When I hold his hand at appointments, I'm consumed by thoughts of how alone I'd felt at my own appointments, how my elderly parents had to fly in from another country because I had no one to take care of me, how I'd lie in an empty bed at night, wondering if I was going to die alone, because that's what I was, completely alone, despite the ring on my finger. How I'd effing beg him to just be present because I needed him, and he'd promise to be and then break that promise over and over and over. I thought I'd forgiven him. I thought I'd moved on. But it turns out I haven't. And I feel like the worst person BC, I can't get these thoughts out of my head. It's like all the bitterness and resentment and heartbreak I'd pushed down is taking over. And it's taking everything I have not to let it boil over, so I can continue supporting him while he's experiencing something so terrifying. I don't know what to do. I feel like a monster for even thinking of leaving now, but at the same time, I don't want to stay. I hate that it took me until now to realize it. It would be so selfish of me to leave, but staying means choking on my own resentment and pretending to be okay day in and day out for gosh knows how long. But at least I had my parents. Mostly they helped as much as they could. He doesn't have a good relationship with his, so who'd take care of him if I were to leave? I always thought I was a better person than this, and it shames me that I'm not. Right now, I'm leaning towards just being the bigger person and getting him through this. But my friend tells me that I'm being unfair and dishonest, and if she were in his shoes, she wouldn't want someone taking care of her who secretly resented having to do so. On the other hand, having actually been in his shoes, I think having to go through it alone is far worse. AITA for leaving or AITA for staying. My head is so twisted up that I just don't know. ETA. I've received a lot of good advice that I'm slowly making my way through, but I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to comment. While I still haven't come to any solid decision, just the reassurance that I'm not a complete monster is so damn appreciated. I did want to add that after me and my husband got back together, he really did step up and has been trying. That's what makes it so hard. If he'd just reverted to how he was before, I would have been long gone. But he's genuinely been trying to make things right. And maybe it's stupid of me, but I don't want to hurt him. I just don't want to give any more of myself to him than I already have. OP is not an AH for her feelings of abandonment because of her husband betrayal. Instead, OP's husband is an AH, the bigger one, for cheating on her wife when she was battling with cancer. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP's husband 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Stanky Pete's. My mother-in-law said, "No whore will be the mother of my grandchildren, and now I'm realizing my biggest nightmare is giving her grandchildren." In 2016, I met an amazing man online on a website. I had dated many men and women, but this man was just different. I'd never felt happier in my entire life. He was so kind to me. We asked each other every question in the entire world, and I knew this man was my person immediately. People thought we were dating before we were even dating because our chemistry was clearly amazing. The website we met on was a game he owned that his entire family played. My man and I were chatting away in the public chat together for days, and then one day his mother came in and immediately was angry. She said, "Who is this woman? And did I give her permission to flirt with my little boy?" I was immediately like, what? And I made a little joke because I like to try lighten the situation. I didn't know I needed permission. Well, I guess she hated that reply. So she made it her literal life mission to try make us as miserable as possible. She threatened to kick him out if he didn't immediately ditch me. He didn't give her a reply to this, so she kept trying to say other horrible things to convince him that I was just a gold-digging whore, without ever having talked to me or knowing what kind of human I was. She went as far to say, and I quote word for word, "No whore will be the mother of my grandchildren." Then she tried to turn all my friends in the game against me, but they all sent me screenshots and told me exactly what she was saying, whilst begging me to not let her know they told me. Despite all of that, my man ignored her. He kept dating me. We were so happy together. I'd never met another human who ever made me smile as hard as this man did. My face was in literal pain daily because of how hard I smiled, to the point I'd violently cry because I was so happy but miserable that I'd never felt loved before in my life. My own family never even showed me love, and it broke my heart. Bleh. One day he asked me what my bucket list was. My whole life has been going on a road trip with amazing humans and just exploring the world, so he offered to take me on a 3-month road trip. He's from USA, I'm from Australia, so we did it. We went across 27 states in the USA and it was amazing. I didn't want to meet his mother for what I think was obvious reasons, but the rest of his family was amazing to me and they welcomed me with open arms on his game, so I came to his house anyway and met his family. At some point his dad even said very awkwardly at the table, when it was just us, and my man, Lizzie, me, seems very terrified to meet her. She's so stressed out and holy yes, I was stressed. I could barely breathe. I can literally remember exactly how I felt sitting in that chair, almost crying because I was so sad. My previous mother-in-law loved me. She treated me like a whole queen, and I couldn't believe I'd fallen in love with a man who had such a horrible mother. But I love him, and he asked me to do it for him. His mother at first was really stiff and uppity about the way she talked to me, and I hated the family dynamic she created every day with her children. She was as always angry at one of the kids and making a point of it by saying XYZ is my favorite now instead of XYZ. And honestly, that's everything I hate about parents, how they try make the others suck up to them for forgiveness. How they create a hierarchy in their own family, all because you live under my roof, you'll do what I say, and I don't need a reason type behavior. His mother also treated the youngest son's girlfriend like absolute but like to her face, and she was also clearly stressed out. The oldest son's girlfriend is like the queen. She treats her with unconditional love and support. They're like besties. Also, I heard her say this a lot. She said, "My sons are only allowed to marry women with blonde hair and blue eyes." Hello to Hitler. Anyone. The youngest son's girlfriend has dark brown hair and brown eyes. I have blonde hair and brown eyes. But when I visited her, my hair was bright red. People always thought I was naturally a redhead, and just straight up refused to believe I had blonde hair because I'm always making silly jokes, and they just assume that's one of them. Anyway, to the point, I never liked his mother. I only ever replied to her if she asked me a question, and then I left her alone. But as time went on, I could see a shift of her realizing she really liked me. She started trying to basically beg for my attention, offering me gifts and all sorts of love. Suddenly, she's the kindest human ever to me. But I think she's a bad human. I think that someone who can try ruin someone's life, who hasn't harmed anyone, or disrespected her even slightly, is a bad human. I think someone who treats her own sons like their feelings and girlfriends don't matter based on hair and eye colors is not a good human. A few months ago, she randomly pipes up and complains that black people just gather around the shops and they're just saying, in this, in, see, in, that, in this, in, that, over 15 times. Except she said the hard ER over 15 times. I literally counted 15 times before I just stopped listening to her. Since that day, I haven't been able to sit in a room with her and not want to literally die. She is an insufferable human who has no morals or empathy, and I don't want to be around her. Literally, whenever she's in a room with me, for some reason I can't hear her anymore. Like my whole brain has entirely shut off that she's speaking, Even if it's to me, she asks me questions and I hear my man reply to her instead, and he rarely speaks in front of people, so that's when I pay attention. She also won't stop trying to touch me, and it's so triggering. I've started not going to their weekly family dinners because I think it's pointless for me to change my morals just this once and suffer by listening to someone that makes me this much anxiety and hate. Here's where I may be the Since 2016, my feelings haven't even slightly changed for this man. I love him, and I'm 100% sure that he's my human. But because of his mother being so insufferable, I no longer want to adopt children that could ever be around this woman. There's now the sad irony that the thought of giving this woman grandchildren is my literal nightmare. I've never really wanted to give birth, and I always wanted to adopt. But I've always said that if I had children, I would never subject them to abuse, and I would give them the childhood. I never had. My childhood was so filled with hate, I put my father in prison for 15 years for the things he did to us. I don't want to live in a world where I have to sit my little Sophia down and say, "Hey, actually, Grandma is crazy, and we don't say that word, and we don't treat people like this." I don't want to have to spend the rest of my life pleading with a child to hear me over her, and I don't see a world where this man would ever deprive his mother from seeing his children. I gave him so many chances to leave me. I tried to leave him to save him myself, but he was always heartbroken, and he always agreed with me no matter what. He supports me, and he's okay with living his whole life with me, even if I never want children. And honestly, who wants to raise children in the United States in this atmosphere anyway? I feel like an for coming here and marrying this man, even though I gave him so many chances to back out. But I love him, and now he seems very sad that I'm no longer coming to his family dinners, and I won't be celebrating Christmas with them. I'll go to all the extra events from his aunts and stuff. Everyone else loves me. His dad is kind to me. He texted me the first time I didn't came to family dinner and said they missed me, and his little brother did too. They're also fun to play Fortnite with and stuff, but I cannot be in a room with this woman. I feel like the obvious answer is to tell this woman she owes me an apology, but why should I have to tell a grown woman that she did something bad? Also, why do people act like humans are like old dogs? She's not old. She works in the medical field. I feel like she's perfectly capable of knowing what she did was not okay. She tried to make our lives hell. She tried to kick him out of home. I don't want to do that. I will not be the bigger person either, because that's something people who enable bad humans tell us to do. She was the grown adult here, and that is what she chose to do. And her consequence is that she doesn't get to pretend to be a big happy family. Just a note, my husband seems very bad at processing emotions and empathy. The only thing this man knows is how to have fun and how to ignore stupid as people say. I guess he's been ignoring her antics his whole life and he's completely unpassed by it. But he seems so sad that I'm not coming with him. And I've explained many times that he cannot be sad or mad at me because this is her doing, not mine. I'm perfectly capable of taking abuse if I deserve it. If I cheated on him or talked bad to her, I'd say, yeah, my bad. I'd never expect forgiveness. But that just isn't the case here. I did nothing wrong to this woman, and I owe her nothing. Guys, I'm so sad. Thank you if you read this far. I just need a hug. OP is not an AH for setting boundaries with her toxic sister-in-law, but I don't understand the logic of not having a baby just because of the toxicity of her mother-in-law. In this situation, the best way forward is to move away from the toxic mother-in-law. So I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's toxic mother-in-law, she is a big AH, and I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. AITA for telling my BFF's husband not to yell at his kid. So, I'm a gay man, and I've known my woman BFF since childhood. Her hubby has never really liked me to the point that their 4 kids know that he pretty much hates me, and will easily admit that he does if I ask them. Over the last year, I've gotten to the point where I no longer care, and just don't engage with him whenever I go over, and to be honest, I've limited my contact with BFF and her kids because of this. In his interactions with his kids, he regularly yells at them for leaving their toys out, not picking up after themselves, for not coming when he calls them, for running 1 or 2 minutes late, for inconveniencing him in any way, etc. It's to the point that his kids don't really enjoy spending time with him because the littlest things seem to bother him and set him off. I typically just keep my mouth shut, but will tell his kids to do X, Y, or Z so that their dad doesn't yell at them. He's heard me say this, and when he's called me out, I just say it's true. That's been the extent of my intervention, though. They're not my kids, so I haven't really known how to interact. Plus, I know that my presence causes drama between him and my BFF, even if he doesn't say it to me. In front of other people, he plays the father of the year, and I just imagine him swallowing all of the things that they do that irritate him so that others don't notice or say anything. It bugs the out of me, but I just keep my mouth shut and let other people believe that he's this amazing, attentive father that he isn't. Last weekend was his daughter's 13th birthday, and my best friend had planned a party for her to have a few friends and their parents over. After some of her friends had arrived, my BFF asked her kid to show me where the projector was in the garage because we're going to use it and the power strip in the bag. We went into the garage and she picked up a bag, saying it was what we were looking for. She was carrying the bag out when her dad showed up and asked her what she was looking for. He saw the bag and began yelling at her that the projector wasn't in there and some other nonsense. His daughter is pretty sensitive, and without even thinking, I told him not to yell at her, that it was her birthday party, and she didn't need that. He shut up and walked into the house, but in the hallway I noticed that he was quietly berating her. I told him to leave her alone and not to ruin her party for her. At that point, he basically just told me not to start with him, and he walked away. At that point, I was pissed and basically just decided that I needed to leave the party because I wasn't going to be able to hold my tongue. I walked outside, pulled my BFF aside, and told her what had happened and that I was leaving. As I was grabbing my bag and walking outside to my car, I looked down the hallway and saw that he was again bothering his daughter, and I told him again to leave her alone. His daughter eventually came out, upset. I asked if I could hug her and if she was okay. I then told her that I was going to go home. She was already upset, but I had my mind set on getting out because I was livid and knew that I wouldn't keep my mouth shut if I didn't get away. Before I left, husband asked me if I was really going to leave, to which I responded that I wasn't about to keep up the facade that he creates. As I was driving home, I was already considering that leaving wasn't the right move because my BFF's daughter might feel bad that I didn't stick around her party. A few minutes after I left, BFF called me and told me that her daughter was upset that I had left, and when I asked, she mentioned that she wanted me to come back. I told her that I needed some time and that I would go to the grocery store and buy some ice cream and chips for the party. When I returned, I kept my distance from husband and left before that last family did because I wasn't about to be there alone with him. Things are cool between me and BFF and her daughter. I'm sure I'm further up on husband's list and expect even more attitude from him and for him to talk even more trash about me to BFF when we hang out. But AITA for telling husband not to yell at his daughter at her birthday party? Also, any tips on how to handle this moving forward? I'm not going to stop seeing and hanging out with my BFF because of this, but I also know that my interjections have caused a shift. OP is not an AH for intervening in his BFF's husband's behavior, who was yelling at his daughter on her birthday. Her interference is justified here, and it doesn't make OP an AH here. Instead, OP's BFF's husband is an AH, a big one. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP's BFF's husband 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Larima 6789. AITA for trying to help my wife. During a stressful situation when she asked for space. I have been having a recurrent problem with my wife where she jumps to rigid, extreme assumptions about our communication when she is stressed out, no matter how I try to clarify, and it makes it incredibly difficult to have any healthy communication. Also, on her side, she feels that I don't respect her boundaries of not wanting to talk when she is upset. I feel that I try very hard to respect those boundaries, and there have been times where I have been in the wrong, but I feel that she doesn't understand the difficult position she puts me in sometimes with her boundaries. I had her review this post and make edits to make sure it was accurate from her perspective. With all this, I'm not saying I'm perfect or could not have done anything better. I am mainly hoping to get my wife to understand 3 things. I didn't call her because I didn't care about her boundaries. I called because I was concerned about her safety. So I felt that making one call would be reasonable. I was not gaslighting her about the road being a one-way. I was trying to help. And when she concluded that was gaslighting, I was defending myself. The assumptions she carries into our communication have a fundamental and devastating effect on our ability to have healthy communication and a healthy relationship. I have never gotten her to acknowledge it is an issue. My wife asked me to get her a hotel the night before an exam because she has a very long commute to school. She has trouble with navigation, so I booked the closest hotel to her exam possible and showed it to her on a map and told her the name, and that it's directly across the street from her exam hall. It turned out there was another hotel with the same name that she went to, so she called me very angry at me that it was my fault for not giving her the actual address, and she's wasted a lot of time now. I apologized, but I felt she was very harsh. She calls me when she gets to the actual hotel very stressed because she says her GPS is telling her to go the wrong way down a one-way to get in. I go on Street View to help her, and she gives me the intersection, but she is upset about the hotel and says she doesn't want to talk and ends the call. And she was very emotional because she had spent more time trying to get to the hotel than it would have taken to get home. However, I am concerned about her safety here because she was so emotional and lost on what to do, and had been making some mistakes, such as causing damage to her purse and suitcase. So, I made one call and told her I was concerned about her safety, and I want to help, and that I looked on street images, and the street is not a one-way. She was not really able to express to me why she felt it was, so I started to explain why I felt it wasn't. She dismisses my concern about calling for her safety, and assumes that I could have no valid reason to call after she said not to, and felt I was calling because I don't care about her boundaries. She accuses me of harassing her when she said not to call, and of gaslighting her about the street not being a one-way and denying her reality, and berates me for this. I never got the chance to finish explaining why I felt it was not a one-way. I felt attacked, so I tried to explain why I felt it was reasonable to call and why I wasn't gaslighting her and why what I had observed indicated it wasn't a one-way. She interprets this as further gaslighting her and further escalates into berating me. From her perspective, I wouldn't stop pushing my belief that it was a one-way, and from my perspective, I am defending myself against an immediate attack on my character and intelligence. I offer to call the hotel to clarify, but she tells me not to. She later called me saying she was on her way home because she felt that it would be faster to just come home. I told her I didn't think it would be faster. We talked about it a bit. She told me not to tell her what to do, which I didn't feel I was doing. And I told her she should do what she wants, and she ultimately decided to stay at the hotel. She had said some hurtful things, and has done this kind of thing a lot. So later on in the evening, I did call her 4 times when she wasn't picking up. And I do think this part could be experienced as harassing her, and I apologized for that. I think our text messages after the fact help to illustrate the dynamic and the communication. A lot of her argument and judgment of my character hinged on me being wrong to think it wasn't a one-way. And I do think I got pulled too much into debating whether or not the street was a one-way, which wasn't the point. Wife: I checked again today. The street was a one-way. And you repeatedly gaslit me about it and harassed me. Literally post about this on Reddit if you want. Your perspective is insane. Is my wife an for freaking out after I repeatedly harassed her and gaslit her and disrespected her need for space? Me: I called you back because I was concerned about your safety and you were freaking out. Wife: I freaked out because you wouldn't stop calling me and were gaslighting me. You were literally denying my reality as real. The street was a one-way. Me: if it was a one-way, there would be signs saying it is a one-way. There aren't. There are stop signs in both directions at both ends of the street. I know it looks like a one-way because it's too narrow for cars to be side by side, but it's not. Wife: it was a one-way. There were no stop signs at both ends of the street. I went and checked and was late to class just so I could check. I literally cannot with your gaslighting. Me: attaches pics of stop signs at both ends of the street. Those are the two sides. Wife: maybe you fail to realize that's not updated. There's construction going on, and construction vehicles and comes up, and there was no stop sign on the other end. It was a one-way. You're going to insane lengths to try and continue to gaslight me, and that's so disgusting. Me: was there a sign that said one-way? Wife: name: there was quite literally no way to go except the one-way. Once again, there were vehicles, construction, and cones. Me: if there's construction going on, that's a completely different thing. Why didn't you mention that before? Wife: it was literally and physically not possible to go a different way, because that was what was making it a one-way. Do I owe you every detail when I'm sick and in distress? My God. I was telling you it was a one-way and you refused to listen. Me: how was it physically impossible to go a different way? Even if the street is partially blocked, there's room to go around it. Was there a sign that said one-way? Wife: name: it was a one-way. End of story. I'm telling you what it was. There were even arrows on the road. Literally, what the are you doing trying to continue to gaslight me in light of all the evidence it was a one-way? Do you need so badly to be right and excuse your actions? What the are you trying to do? This is literally a sickness. Trying to gaslight me so hard and prove me wrong consistently. Literally, what is wrong with you? You have no idea how disgusting you're acting right now. Me. If that's how you want to choose to see it, it's clear that no conversation is going to be productive. Wife. It's clear you won't stop until I agree what you're saying is right, even though you are so clearly in the wrong. That is literally abuse. That is psychological abuse. You do this type of stuff constantly, and it is abuse. Me. That's actually what you do. Like when you tried to bully me the other day into saying that I don't listen to you. I'm defending myself because you are attacking me, but I'm not trying to force you to agree with me. It's possible I could be wrong, that the construction made it a one-way. I'm doubtful it is, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that I was there trying to help you and expressed concern, and I wasn't doing anything wrong by telling you that it wasn't a one-way when that's what I was seeing on Google Maps. It's absurd to call that gaslighting. That's me trying to be supportive and helpful. You jump to conclusions that make no sense. And it happens very consistently when you're stressed out. I've pointed this out hundreds of times, and you've shown me you're incapable of seeing it. I'm done with this conversation. My wife wants me to note some things that contributed to her frustration. She felt that I hadn't been sufficiently sympathetic about a flare-up of a medical condition she had earlier that day. I had not been aware she felt this way. Also, after the flare-up, she asked me if she could come home and felt I guilted her about money into staying at the hotel. I disagree, as I had no such intention. Here was the conversation. Wife, can I come home tonight? Me, if you want. Wife, you don't want me to. Me, it would just suck to waste the hotel, but if you prefer to be home, you should do what feels best for you. Wife, okay. Me, what do you want to do? Wife, I don't know. What if you stayed with me? I couldn't go because it would have left me with 4 hours of sleep, and she decided to stay at the hotel. Also, she feels that it was messed up for me to mention the money, as I had just lost 2K USD playing online poker. This is not something I've ever done before, and she didn't know this until the next day. I don't think it is relevant to the interaction, but she feels that it makes me mentioning the cost of the hotel much worse. I only mentioned the cost because I took her message to ask if I had reservations, but I feel I made it clear what was important was what she wanted. OP is not an AH for being concerned about his wife's safety and trying to help. However, he mishandled her request for space by repeatedly calling and debating with his wife. He could have handled the situation differently and in a better way. No one is an AH here. Rather, all this confusion is a result of a communication gap between partners. They need to bridge this gap. SIL is bitter her ex proposed to me and this got her banned from our family. AITA for this. My 27F fiance's ex is now my older brother's wife, so my SIL. To make it less confusing, my fiance is George, my brother is David, and my SEL is Ella. George, 38M, briefly dated Ella, 34F, 4 years ago. Ella wanted to get married and have kids, but George did not want this with her. He was also having a lot of issues back then, partying, doing drugs, and not being the most reliable person. They dated for 6 months and everything ended in drama, because Ella was not able to make George want to settle with her. Soon after their breakup, she met my brother, and they got married 6 to 7 months after. So, yeah, they moved really fast and basically Ella dated her ex, broke up with him, met my brother, and got married to him, everything in only 1 year and a couple of months. I met George 2 years ago, and at that time, Ella was already married to my bro. Back then, I had no idea that George was Ella's ex. When George started to feel attracted to me, he changed completely. He quit drinking and doing drugs. He has been sobering ever since. Started going to therapy, and overall became a new person. He did this because he wanted to change, and I have been with him during his entire healing journey. I am very proud of him, and we have a healthy and amazing relationship. Even if Ella was already married to my brother, she was furious when she found out I was dating George, and that he was serious with me. She was so cruel, and said a lot of nasty lies. She used to tell everyone that George was grooming me. I was 25 when we became a thing, and he was 36. This is not grooming FFs. She lied that George was abusing me, trying to get me to become an addict like him, and many other things. This ruined my relationship with my brother because he never did anything to make her stop. George and I announced our engagement to my family last week during my dad's birthday. My parents were happy for us, but Ella said, "It must be nice to be the one to get the ring, after someone else struggled to fix him." Again, no reaction from my brother as usual. My parents told her to stop, but I just snapped and told her something along the lines, "He fixed himself, UPOS. And yes, it is nice to know I will be married to the man I love more than anything and who loves me the same. But how is it for you, knowing that no one else except my idiot brother ever wanted to marry you? Does it feel nice?" My parents kicked them out after this. They told her that everybody had enough of her BS. She is insane, because although being married, she is still bitter over the fact that her ex did not want her. She is officially banned from every family event, and my brother is now blaming me. So AITA in this situation? I don't think I am, honestly, but I want to also hear some unbiased perspective. AITA has no consensus bot. OP was NTA with a few YTAs and others. Relevant comments? OP clarifies the details on why SCL is banned, but not her based on multiple comments. OP, why should I be banned from my own family? I am my parents' child, and she is an in-law. I will soon be an in-law to my future husband's family, but I would never attack his relatives in their homes. Also, my relationship with George is not doomed. We are happy, we love each other, and we really have a healthy relationship. A frustrated woman who cannot get over something that happened 4 years ago will not ruin my relationship. Commenter 1. Your style being banned is essentially banning your brother as well. Would George actually go to family events if you weren't allowed to go? OP. No, he would not go without me. But my brother was asked multiple times to address this and keep his wife in line, and he did not. He keeps making excuses for her. Just to be clear, I was able to tolerate this woman for years, and I did it only for my brother, but apparently he was not able to ask his wife to stop. Commenter 2. Yeah, I think we have an unreliable narrator here. George is not sounding like a knight in shining armor, and from Ella's comments that she's trying to keep OP from something bad happening, maybe the family should ask her for specifics? Maybe Ella isn't bitter that her ex didn't want her. Maybe she knows something OP doesn't. This is some messy, and I definitely think we are missing information. OP, I can respect your opinion and thank you for your feedback. Yes, this is how she made it seem, that she knows things that I am too young and in love to see, that she is looking out for me. Some lies that she said are, that George is grooming me. False, I am a consenting adult. Yes, we have an age gap, but it's not like I am 15, and he is 11 years older. She said George will influence me to drink and do drugs to become like him. False, he never did anything like this. He never ever did that with her either. Although in her narrative, she is trying to make people see George as a dangerous man who is running down the street with a needle to corrupt people to do drugs with him, this is not the case at all. Even when he used, he was not like that. He has always been a functional adult. He has a good paying job, but in the past, he was spending his free time at parties, getting drunk or high to numb out some of his feelings, and he was clearly not relationship material. She said his change is not real, that he is just a predator, faking to be a good guy now just to get me. This is false also. I am the one living with him for 2 years, and I think I know better what's happening in my house. So, no. Even if she deludes herself, Ella does not know George better than I do. Did OP have a great relationship with her brother before his marriage to Ella? OP, I love my brother, and we used to have a great relationship before. Since he is older, he was always my protector, but I am deeply hurt and disappointed in how he acted during the last years. Ella and I never bonded or had a close relationship. How did I respond to the snide comments? At first, I tried to be polite and chill, but when her comments did not stop, I also became unkind to her. Update 1. This update will be very long, so if you don't want to waste time reading the first part, you can skip directly to the actual update. Thank you so much for all your comments and reaching out to me. I don't know what I accepted when I posted. I guess I wanted to receive some unbiased feedback from an outside perspective, but I never expected this. I was really overwhelmed with how kind and nice most of you were, so once again, thank you and sorry for not being able to reply to all the comments. For those who were not on the same page, I understand and respect that you have a different opinion. From my initial post, I have left out a lot of details because it's a long story, But some of you were curious about what actually happened and asked me to provide more details, so buckle up. I will do just that. How I met my future husband. I got asked a lot if I live in a trailer park or small town with only a bar available. The answer is no. We actually live in a big city with a population of a couple millions of people. I met my fiancée through a mutual friend. My girlfriend was dating one of George's colleagues, and they all began to hang out for drinks after work since they were all in the same building. At some point, I had no plans for that day, and my girlfriend invited me to go with them to a bar, and this is how we were introduced. After this, we started having different group activities together, and things slowly progressed. George targeted his ex's younger Sael to spite her / there was no coincidence that we started dating. As absurd as it may sound, it was indeed an ironic coincidence. You may think out of the millions of people there are in a city, what are the chances for you to start dating your Sael's ex? Well, it happened to me, and we did not know about it in the beginning. The girlfriend that asked me to go with them to a bar did not know Ella, never saw her IRL, and she never saw her with George. When George met me, he had no idea that I had any connection to Ella, so there was no chance for him to be an evil mastermind and intentionally date me just to spite her. I did not take George home to meet my family immediately either. Maybe I am the weird one, but I was never the type to parade my boyfriends in front of my parents if I was not sure the relationship was going to last. I broke the girls' code. I do not consider that I did. Let's be clear, I have a couple of true friends. They have been my friends for many years, and I would do anything for them. I am a very loyal person, and I know the girls' code very well. When we eventually found out the connection Ella had with both of us, I was shocked, and I asked the same question that many of you did. What were the chances? It was a very uncomfortable position to be in. Even though I had no relationship with Ella except the obvious one of her being my cell, it was strange to know that they dated. I wanted to find out what happened before taking any decision, and I did. The way I saw things, there was no reason for me to punish George for having a past. We were in love, we were happy, and Ella was already married to my brother. I may have been selfish, but I thought, is this man and our relationship worth it? And the answer was yes. To me he was, is, and will always be worth it. Also, we see my brother and Ella only a couple of times / year. Most of the times, for obvious reasons, we prefer to visit my parents separately. George's addictions, so many of you reached out to me being concerned about this, and I wanted to thank you for caring and say, I am sorry you had to go through traumatic experiences with addicts. Some of your stories were hard to read, and I appreciate immensely that you were open to share your experiences with a stranger. I understand why most of you were triggered by my story, but George was not that type of addict. He had a lot of unresolved traumas, he was lonely, unloved, and ashamed, so his coping mechanism were parties, alcohol, and drugs. His entourage was also not the best. You can imagine that a bunch of 36-years-old party boys / girls are no good, but at the end of the day, when everyone else went home to their families, wives, and kids, these were the people who could provide company to George. I think it was more like all of them providing company to each other so they could feel less lonely. But other than this, George was a functional adult. He had a stable, well-paying job. He was and is still working as a software engineer. He was never violent, etc. George changed for me. No. George changed for himself, and because he wanted to. He told me that I was the trigger that made him want to get his life in order, but in a more meaningful way than just wanting to get into my pants. When we started hanging out as a group with my friend and his colleague, he learned how easy it was to interact and have fun without drugs or alcohol. He also saw that I enjoyed spending time with him, I looked forward to seeing him every time, and he understood that his sober self is not unlovable. He was longing for healthy relationships and normality, but until that moment he felt like he was not deserving to have them. I think the way I helped him was solely because I saw and fell in love with his true self, and that gave him confidence and purpose. I am the golden child. There is no such thing in our family. My parents love my brother and I the same. Of course, when they heard Ella's BS the first time, they were worried for me, but I was open with them. I told them how things happened. George was honest and never hid his troubled past from them, and in the end, they were okay with our relationship. My parents trust me, trust my judgment, and they only want to see me happy. And in regards to Ella, my parents are just doing what every parent should, defend their child. She was warned before. My parents talked to her, asked her to stop acting like this, and told her she is out of line, so it's not like they kicked her out the first time it happened. Now into the... Yesterday, I contacted my brother and asked him to meet me for coffee. It was only the two of us, and I think it was the first time I have opened my heart like this in front of him. I started off by apologizing for him being caught in the middle, but I told him I will never apologize or be sorry for loving George. I was honest and told him how much this situation has been affecting me. My brother is the same age as my fiancé, so he is 11 years older than me. During our childhood, he was my protector, the person I looked up to. Due to our age difference, we never really had many activities in common, and I could not wait for the moment I grow up so I can get to share more with my brother as adults. But I did not get the chance to do this because of Ella. David would always teach me to value myself, to choose people who treat me right and make me happy. However, I am not able to share my happiness with him anymore. I understand why he would wish I never met George, but it still hurts knowing that your brother somehow resents the source of your happiness. David would always defend me when I was younger, even in front of our parents. When I was 15, I was experimenting with makeup and it looked bad, really bad. During a family function, one of our uncles got drunk and told me to stop using makeup because I was too young to look like a hooker. David got mad and kicked him out for offending his sister. This is the kind of brother he used to be, and to now see how he stays aside and allows his wife to be offensive and cruel, it's really hurtful. I do not care that she is like that towards me. I don't like Ella at all, and I could easily ignore her. But what gets to me the most is she constantly trying to belittle and humiliate my future husband. I have lived with this man for 2 years. I have shared so many things with him during this time, and I am certain I know better what kind of man he is. I know how hard it was for him to heal all his trauma. I know how hard he worked day by day to become the best version of himself. I know how much he loves me, protects me, supports me, and I simply lose it when I hear her crap, and how she is constantly trying to bring him down. Yes, I go bear mode when he is involved, as someone told me in the comments, but I don't care. I will not allow any of my family members to abuse the person I love. I may have tolerated things for my brother's sake, but I will never be quiet in front of a wife. I told my brother that I love him, and I will always cherish the memories I have with him, but we cannot go on like this. I understand he is a victim, and I am ready to do anything for him if he is willing to accept that his marriage is not good, that Ella is not a good woman and is abusing him. I cannot force him to divorce her because this has to be his choice, but I told him I will accept his decision no matter what that is. He will always be my brother, but George is my family now. We plan on having kids in the near future, and there is no way in hell I will ever allow his lunatic of a wife to be near my kids. I also refuse to subject George to the abuse. We tried. We thought that this rough period will eventually pass and that everything will be okay, but unfortunately, Ella became more and more bitter and disgusting. We will still see my parents, but I am standing my ground and will not go to their house if she is present. David and I cried a lot, and for the first time in many years, I felt like I had my brother back. He apologized over and over again and explained a lot of things to me, which gave me the chance to understand him better. But at the same time, I am so angry that I had no idea what was happening to my brother. Some people said that David was a rebound for Ella, but it seems they were both a rebound for the other. What made them marry so fast was the age pressure. My brother was feeling like it was very hard to connect with someone, and the prospect of being able to have a family of his own seemed very far away, until Ella came and offered him the possibility to have exactly what he wanted without too much struggle. So, yeah, in the end, I guess we are all some messed up people in a way or another. I don't know what's going to happen. David said he plans to take some time, go away alone for a couple of days, and think what he wants to do. But he said that when he'll be back, he wants to have a chat with George to apologize to him as well for everything that has happened. My brother knows that everything Ella says is false. He said everyone is able to see how much George loves me, and that we make a great couple, and there are times when he wished to also have something like this in his life. He told me he is proud of the woman I have become, and that no matter what happens, I will always be his little sister. After this, I went home and cried some more with George besides me. I have tried to play strong and denied myself to feel hurt for so long that yesterday I have finally exploded. But it was good because now I feel better. Additional information from OP. Responding to multiple comments regarding on trying to be civil to Ella and covering George's past up. OP, hi, I respect your point of view and thank you for your feedback. However, it seems too much to me saying I brought him back into her life. No one expects them to suddenly be BFFs or spend a lot of time together. We do not have the same group of friends. We do not have vacations or trips together. So how is my future husband forced into her life? We only ever meet up for family-related occasions, which are not that many to be honest. In a year, we have Easter, Christmas, and my parents' birthdays, so 4 events. And maybe sometimes some weddings of extended family members, but that's it. Also, no one asked her to do anything or be nice to us. I only ever asked her to ignore us like I do to her, so basically, she was asked to behave like an adult. As an adult, sometimes you will have to share the same space with people you are not really fond of. However, you should be able to be civil and do not make stupid comments. I never liked her, not even before George, so she is forced into my life? I guess so. But I understood sometimes I have to see her because she is my brother's wife, and that was it. I can understand her experience with my future husband was very different than what I have with him, and I can respect her not liking him. However, I will never accept her idiot comments, her nasty remarks, her lies, and overall, her being a person towards us. She should fix her issues with a therapist, not act like we are her punching bag. Relevant comments? Has OP's brother shared on if there was some type of abuse going on between him and Ella? OP? He did not share much about what is happening to him, but from what I have seen and what he had told me, I don't expect her to be the perfect angel with him. Also, abuse has many forms, and at least she is abusing his kindness and his easygoing nature. She had the guts, multiple times I should say, to come to my parents' house and offend me, their daughter, in their presence, even after they were polite enough, and asked her to stop. So again, I don't think that she is being too nice to my brother behind closed doors. OP should share that her brother didn't need to have a miserable future with Ella if she continues to manipulate him. OP, yes I did, and I talked to my parents, and we will target the topic full force when he comes back. I fear she is manipulating him with this, in order to make him accept more than he should. Maybe convincing him that at their age it is too late to find someone to start a family with. But hell, even my fiancé is willing to talk to him and use himself as an example that it is never too late and you should not settle for toxic people. Update 2. 1 month later. Hey. It's been some time since my last update and I kept receiving questions about what's new with my family drama, so I decided to update once again. TLDR. My brother David is divorcing his wife, and we found out a lot of details about her. As expected, she is not taking the divorce lightly. As planned, David did take some time for himself and went to a retreat cabin for a week. He went there alone because he wanted to have the space and time to rethink his life choices. This was exactly what he told Ella, but left out the location because he did not want to risk her showing up there. The first day he was away, Ella contacted my parents and me to ask us about my brother's location. We did not disclose anything. On Wednesday that week, I was contacted by some of my brother's friends. They wanted to know if my brother was okay, and if it was true that David was cheating on Ella. Initially, I was very confused on why would they think that, but they told me that Ella has been going around complaining to people that my brother was cheating on her and that we, his family, were on board with it and covering up his affair. I told my bro's friends that this was not true, but I decided to be petty, so I went on social media, uploaded a photo of me with my brother, and wrote how proud I am of him that he is taking this time to focus on mental health and his well-being. Some hour later, Ella called me and demanded I take down my post because I was embarrassing her. I played dumb and asked her why would a post dedicated to my brother would ever embarrass her. She never answered, never admitted to lying, and I never took down my post. It will stay where it is for posterity. After my brother returned from the retreat, he asked me, George and my parents to meet up at our parents' place and talk. He apologized for everything that happened with his wife and told us a lot of things about Ella. Apparently, she is a very jealous person, and she has a constant need to put others down so she can look better or feel superior. Bro gave us a lot of examples of things she did, including to some of her relatives and supposed friends. One of her female cousins works for a transport company, so most of her colleagues at work are men. Ella told this cousin's husband that there are high chances of her cousin cheating since she spends every day surrounded by men. Her cousin was pregnant at that time, and I don't know if she was trying to imply the baby may not be her husband's, but still, needless to say, they don't speak to Ella anymore. She had a girlfriend who got into a relationship with a guy. Ella kept telling this girl bad things about her partner that she supposedly heard from other people. She was never able to tell who she heard it from. Most likely, she invented everything. That's why her family members avoid her and never invite her to functions, and she does not have any friends. People from their circle were friends with my bro before he married her, so they are just tolerating her for his sake. I mentioned that Ella must be abusing my brother, and a lot of people took it the wrong way. When I mentioned abuse, I did not mean it as physical abuse, but more like emotional abuse. I guess everyone has their own way of seeing things, but for me, being married and still being pissed about things that happened with your ex years ago is clearly a sign of disrespect towards your spouse. And if someone is able to openly disrespect their spouse over and over again in front of their family, it's a high chance for that person to do more than disrespect behind closed doors. My bro clearly struggles to see his self-worth at the moment, and this is also the reason why he accepted too many things from his wife. But we will be with him, always support him, and remind him what an awesome guy he is. Also, many people were outraged and called me an AH for calling my brother an idiot. I don't know if all of your families and relationships are like those you see in commercials, but in real life, siblings fight. And sometimes when they fight, they may call each other's names. This doesn't mean I don't love my brother or that I don't respect him. But if I see him acting like an idiot, I will always say it to his face and explain why I think he is an idiot. I apologized for calling. I'm an idiot. And he said there is no need to apologize because he expects me to always be honest with him, even if sometimes the truth may hurt. And I understand because I expect the same from him. Anyways, David confronted Ella with everything that she has been doing and told her she needs to get help. She refuses to accept she has any problem. She states that everything that she has ever done came from a place of love and care for that person. Right? Because when you care for your cousin, you lie to her husband that she may be cheating on him, or when you care for your sile, you lie to everyone that she is forced to do drugs by her partner. She did not take the divorce well, but not because she was losing my brother, but because she saw this as a failure that shattered her perfect image she had of herself. Maybe after some time passes, I will actually be able to feel sorry for her because she is a sad person with so many issues that refuses to get help. Of course, Ella blamed the divorce on me and our family, claiming that David is choosing us over her, so clearly, she does not take any kind of responsibility for her actions. David, however, warned her that if she continues spreading lies about our family, we will hire a lawyer and take legal actions against her. At the end of the day, if she still insists with her crap, she will have to prove everything in court. Of course, we don't want to get to this, but she needs to understand that we cannot say whatever we want about other people and not face the consequences. In the meantime, George and I are planning our wedding, and my bro will be George's groomsman. They really had the chance to bond and even discovered they actually have a lot in common. I don't want to be mean, but ever since Ella is out of the picture, our family gatherings happen more often than before, and the atmosphere is so light. My brother is slowly going back to his old self. He is having a good time with us, no stress, no dissociating. He is just present and enjoying. So that's it for now. I don't know if this was the update you were expecting, but I can say I am happy. We are slowly healing from everything that had happened these past years, and I am positive that in the end, we will be closer and stronger than before. Relevant comments. OP on Ella needing to get help with resolving her own issues, affecting David's self-esteem. OP. Wow, I never thought about this, but you may be right. I have been thinking about your comment and it makes a lot of sense. My brother who has self-esteem issues, her cousin and cousin's husband that were expecting a child, so obviously were in a vulnerable and emotional moment of their lives. Her friend that started dating someone and was going through that initial phase of getting to know the partner and building trust. My brother again when she knew their relationship was on rocks and he may decide to walk away from her, so why not trash his image and conveniently plant affair rumors before a divorce? My parents. Jesus, she may be actually really evil. Commenter 1. Ella sounds like a real piece of work. It's a shame that she couldn't just be happy for you and your brother. Good on you for standing up for him and exposing her lies. Hopefully she gets the help she needs, but it's understandable if people want to distance themselves from her toxic behavior. Keep supporting your brother and reminding him that he deserves better. Commenter 2. Ella sounds like the textbook definition of toxic. Good riddance to her, honestly. Glad your brother's getting his life back together. OP is not an AH here. Rather, OP's sister-in-law is an AH, a big AH, for her toxic behavior. She seems to be epitome of toxic. It seems that her toxic behavior is the result of jealousy for having a failed relationship with her ex-boyfriend. So I would rate OP's sister-in-law 4 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can. And don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.